there's industrial smog.
I completely reactors like
Their pollution per capita is way more than ours.
That is just false.
Okay, I encourage you to go to like any major Chinese city. You know, there's days where you cannot leave your apartment or your home in China because there's so much industrial smog.
Yeah.
It's like half the days a year.
They also have like 3 times as many people as we do.
Right, but can you point to a single U.S. city that I know of where for many days a year you can't leave the home because there's industrial smog?
I completely agree that that's bad, but I am just addressing the fact that objective.
Sorry. Hello, Mr. Kirk. My name is Alex. A question I had for you. The Trump administration recently has been initiating deportation proceedings against lawfully present immigrants for what is clearly constitutionally protected speech. Do you think that that's consistent with our Constitution and our values as Americans?
Got it. So I wasn't sure what. So there's like 5 cases that you could have went with, but I'm guessing you're talking about Mahmoud Khalil and the students, right?
Mahmoud Khalil is one case, but recently student visas have been revoked at this campus and at the University of Michigan.
I'm glad they're revoked here. So, yes, of course it's consistent with the Constitution.
Good morning, guys. Welcome to Morning Medication. I'm going to be taking your calls today. So we're going to watch a little bit of Charlie Kirk. There's a few things, some recent news that we're going to go over real quick. And then we're going to talk about some of this stuff. And I'm going to bring you guys on live. So hang tight for that. And let's check out Charlie.
Because they're not U.S. citizens. They're visitors. So as a visitor, you have to be a visitor on our terms. And if you break that compact, you are returned back to your country of origin. A student visa is a conditional invitation. We're going to see who you are, how you act, and how you behave. And if you behave in a way that the government deems to be unsatisfactory, of course you're going to be returned back to your country of origin.
What I would say to that, one, the Supreme Court and our Constitution is very clear that constitutional rights apply to everyone within the United States' jurisdiction.
To a limited extent. For example, you're correct. For example, if a student on Michigan State campus has a student visa and they get charged with a crime, they get due process. You are correct. They get Fifth Amendment rights. But can they own a gun?
I think restrictions on their ownership of firearms
Can they vote?
Constitutional. They cannot vote.
So there are restrictions on rights for visitors. So to an extent, you are correct, but it is not the same rights that we as U.S. citizens are granted. Does that make sense? There are limitations on those rights.
That makes sense, particularly in the
Guys,
exercise
this is a pretty good one. I'm going to rewind this because
voting, for sure.
I'm going to rewind this because this is actually something that came up yesterday in our live, in the afternoon live, in our evening live. So I'm going to pull this back, and we're going to do this. Yep, he is back. Are you talking about Charlie or me? But I want to play this again because literally someone asked me about this guy, Mahmoud Khalil. So, and I'm going to put this back. And my answer was I didn't know enough about that situation, but this actually helps. So let's check it out.
Sorry. Hello, Mr. Kirk. My name is Alex. A question I had for you. The Trump administration recently has been initiating deportation proceedings against lawfully present immigrants for what is clearly constitutionally protected speech. Do you think that that's consistent with our Constitution and our values as Americans?
Got it. So I wasn't sure what. So there's like 5 cases that you could have went with, but I'm guessing you're talking about Mahmoud Khalil and the students, right?
Mahmoud Khalil is one case, but recently student visas have been revoked at this campus and at the University of Michigan.
I'm glad they're revoked here. So, yes, of course it's consistent with the Constitution because they're not U.S. citizens. They're visitors. So as a visitor, you have to be a visitor on our terms. And if you break that compact, you are returned back to your country of origin. A student visa is a conditional invitation. We're going to see who you are, how you act, and how you behave. And if you behave in a way that the government deems to be unsatisfactory, of course you're going to be returned back to your country of origin.
What I would say to that,
that's a great
one,
point.
the Supreme Court and our Constitution is very clear.
That's a great point that he brings up. They're here. They're visitors. They're here, and we've given them, the opportunity to come over, sometimes ahead of the line and be students and come and study. and we get to see who they are, and if they are supporting, or if they're supporting like other kind of terrorist groups or something like that, or not living our values, then I think we have the right to do that. So interesting. I want to hear more about this.
Clear that constitutional
So someone here says they retracted their comment.
rights apply to everyone within the United States' jurisdiction.
To a limited extent. For example, you're correct. For example, if a student on Michigan State campus has a student visa and they get charged with a crime, they get due process. You are correct. They get Fifth Amendment rights. But can they own a gun?
I think restrictions on their ownership of
They cannot.
firearms
Can they
is
vote?
constitutional. They
I
cannot
didn't know
vote.
that.
So there are restrictions on rights for visitors. So to an extent, you are correct, but it is not the same rights that we as U.S. citizens are granted. Does that make sense? There are limitations on those rights.
That makes sense, particularly in the exercise of political rights, like voting, which
For
is
sure.
an exercise of
But
political power.
second to that is also political advocacy. As a visitor, you do not have unlimited free speech rights. You don't. They are conditional to you being expelled. And the specific act that you're talking about says that if the government deems the speech of the individual to be contrary to U.S. foreign policy interests, which I think advocating for Hamas is against the U.S. foreign policy interests, then we can send you back to your country of origin. Now, you would have a case if we were all of a sudden deporting or imprisoning U.S. citizens. I would be right there with you saying that you can support Hamas all you want as a U.S. citizen. You have a right to do that. But if you're a visitor, you're here on a trial basis. Your tryout is going. We're looking at how you're behaving. And if we look as if that it's inconsistent with how we want people to assimilate to this country, then you go back to Libya or Syria or wherever you're from.
I'd like to make 2 points in response to that. First, the Supreme Court at least suggested in a case called Kleindienst versus Mandel in the 1950s that the First Amendment does apply to immigrants, to people who are not citizens, and that they do receive First Amendment protections. But second, I want you to think about the kind of country we live in. If the Secretary of State can deport any non-citizen they want for their speech, you would have police and ICE going up to people at protests on campuses, including protests you might agree with, and asking people for their papers. I think that that's completely inconsistent with the values you've talked about of freedom of speech. And I think that's not the kind of country that most people would want to live in.
It's a fair point. I have a different perspective. Do you think there should be any, let's just push your contention to the largest possible logical extreme. Should we be able to have any reason to deport a student who here's on visa?
Yes, absolutely.
What would that mean? By what criteria would it be? Probably like committing a crime, right?
If they commit a crime,
Fair
if
enough.
they committed a visa application fraud,
Great.
there's many reasons
So
that you can deport people.
So let's like wind the clock back a little bit to maybe World War II. And let's say that a student, this is a hypothetical, so it's not a great one. Let's actually do more recent. Let's say during the like Iraq-Afghanistan war, okay? Where we were in a bitter battle against Al-Qaeda right after 9/11. I don't think we ever should have invaded Iraq for the record, but that's a separate issue. Let's say a student was here on a student visa from Afghanistan saying that they support Al-Qaeda. Is that worthy of deportation?
I would say it would depend on the factual circumstances. If you could prove that they gave material support to Al-Qaeda,
Well, by
then they obviously should go.
advocating for Al-Qaeda as a student visa.
Mere advocacy, I would say should not warrant deportation.
Okay,
But
we just disagree. Then. That's fine.
but I would say it's worth pointing out that the Trump administration is not invoking the provision of the Immigration and Nationality Act that allows you to deport people for supporting terrorism. They are not invoking that. They are invoking instead
The Secretary
yeah,
of
the
State
Secretary of
provision.
State.
Yeah, no, I'm aware.
So if all these people supported terrorism, why not invoke the provision that says you can deport people?
Well, you guys can come up, come wait in line.
terrorism.
It's fine. Okay, we'll send some medical help. We got it. Yeah. All right. Let's not draw our eyes there. It actually makes it worse. So let's just keep going. Pray for that person. We'll get them medical help. Thank you, guys. More attention actually makes these situations sometimes worse. So we just disagree, and that's fine. I believe that if you are on campus advocating for Hamas, that basically you as a visitor should not come to this country, period.
All right.
I think it's a pretty simple claim.
Last brief point, Mahmoud Khalil was a lawful permanent resident with a green card. Does that change your analysis at all? You're fine So he's not necessarily a guest in the same way as someone with a student visa.
A green card is a guest. It's not a U.S. citizen.
Okay, so if you're fine, would you be fine with Kamala Harris if she was elected president, saying my foreign policy interest is we're against racism, so we will be deporting any conservative student on campus?
That's the best argument you can make. That's the best argument that you've made.
So what would your argument be to a hypothetical President Harris?
To a hypothetical, I mean, first of all, is racism a foreign policy objective of the U.S. government? I mean, under Kamala Harris, I could see her saying something as insane as that.
I mean,
so,
the Trump administration cited anti-Semitism, which is basically the same thing.
You're making a good point.
Okay. All right, thank you. So you would have no principled response to hypothetical President Harris?
My principled response would be that's not a national security foe that you could target, like Hamas. However, to your point, could this provision be abused in the future? Yes. Why am I largely in support of it? Even more than the specifics, I think we need to push back on this idea that you can behave however you want while you're a visitor, and there's nothing we can do to expel you. That's my larger macro premise, that while you are a student here, or whatever, a visitor, we have a right to send you back to your country of origin if you don't fit into agreed upon American values. But you made a good point. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Hi. You said something earlier about, this was previously, you said that we have a moral obligation to support the state of Israel. And I just wanted clarification whether you meant the we as in like Americans, Christians, like what you meant.
I would say believers as Christians. I mean, look, Catholics are going to disagree with that, and that's fine, but correct.
So I'm a Protestant, and I would disagree that we have to like unconditionally support the state of Israel.
We should absolutely not unconditionally support the state of Israel.
Okay, yeah, then.
All right, guys, I'm going to hit pause to let you know I'm going to be taking your calls at some point. So if any of you want to actually have your voice heard, want to get on live, you know, we can start working on that, and we'll do that through Instagram chat, and we'll get you on live. So let me know if you guys want to get on. We'll get that going, and I got to check it out and make sure I feel comfortable with you, and so then we'll put you on. And we're also going to go through some recent news as well. There's apparently some really interesting discussions at the UN. So here we go.
Then we agree with that.
I mean, if any state does something that is against our worldview or our values, but as a Protestant, I don't know what flavor you are, but I'm evangelical. We have a long buffet line as Protestants, right?
Yeah.
We believe the reconstitution of Israel was prophetic, and the creation of the state of Israel in the 1950s was a fulfillment of Bible promises and prophecy.
So I'm not 100% sold on the idea that the state of Israel we have today is the Israel that is talked about.
You might be right.
In the Bible, right?
So
there's some variation.
So just to be clear, there's closed-hand issues when it comes to theology and open-handed issues.
Right.
Open-hand issues are like Israel, eschatology, you know, is the Eucharist the body and blood of Christ? I don't think those things actually merit whether or not you're going to heaven. Closed-hand issues, was Jesus Christ the Son of God? Did he rise from the dead? Was Mary a virgin? Those are closed-hand issues.
Christ is king.
Christ is king, exactly. So I'm happy to have spirited, fun conversation about open-hand issues, but I don't think we should ever condemn people if we have disagreements on open-hand issues.
Yeah, I'm not saying
No, for sure, I know.
Yeah.
Nasıl çalışabilirsiniz gelecekte?
İnandığım için zaten bunları söylüyorum.
Guys, this is the President of Turkey. This is now live.
And you have also contact with many leaders in the region. And what do you think that you can do about this? And Mr. President has said that, yes, I believe in the peace efforts that President Trump is leading, and together we will be able to overcome the challenges in the region.
I think it's true. He's got tremendous influence in the region. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, when are you planning to lift CAATSA sanctions against Turkey?
Against sanctions against Turkey? Could be very soon.
Mr.
If we have a good meeting, almost immediately.
Mr. President, are you willing to impose tougher sanctions on Russia? Erdogan is removing tariffs on U.S. goods and what impact it would be in U.S. production.
Where are you from?
Turkey.
I see. We have a lot of people from Turkey here. That's
We are
good. Because I like the questions very much, actually. They're very nice questions. We'll see about tariffs. We're going to be talking about tariffs.
We already removed that.
Well, we're going to be talking about that.
Mr. President, we host conversations on Russia, even if not all NATO countries stop purchasing Russian oil?
We're going to be seeing about that. The NATO countries were disappointing in that regard, but they've been very amazing in other ways. They did, as you know, they went from 2% to 5% GDP, and that's a big step, and it's paid. I mean, they have the money there. And we're selling a tremendous amount of military equipment to NATO. We're selling. We're not giving like Biden did. We're selling it to NATO, and it's a lot. They're buying a lot, and I assume they're giving it to Ukraine. They could buy it for other reasons too, but I assume they're giving most of it to Ukraine. But they're buying highly sophisticated weaponry, and they're paying for it full price, and that's how we're involved. Biden gave $350 billion. Look, this war would have never started if I were president. If I were president, this war would never be happened. Would have never happened. Yeah.
Mr. President, I'd like to talk about Gaza. Are you on the same page, Mr. Erdogan?
I say plenty, guys, and by the way, I'm going to have you guys on so you can talk as well.
We want to get Gaza over with. I had a great meeting with the leaders of that area, of that region, generally speaking, the Middle East. We had a great meeting the other day at UNGA, as you know, and I think we're close to getting some kind of a deal done. Yeah, we want to get the hostages back. I have to get the hostages back. We're the ones that got the hostages, all of them that we have now. But it looks like there are 20 living hostages and probably 38 or so dead hostages. Pretty sad. And the parents of those dead souls, those dead, mostly men, boys, in many cases like literally boys, they want those bodies back so badly, as much as though they were alive. And so we had a very good meeting with the representatives of the most powerful countries in the Middle East, and I think we're going to be close to a deal.
Mr. President, we've noticed that in the Ukrainian war and during the Israeli-Iran war, the airspace of the NATO countries is very fragile, and it needs to be stronger. And in that sense, Turkey being the second largest army in NATO, it needs to support its air force and air defense. How do you look at this issue in general as a NATO? Because it's the eastern flank of it.
We're in NATO, and you know, they're paying now 5% of GDP. Nobody thought that was possible, and they agreed to that 6 months ago when I was there. And the relationship is very good. The NATO countries are, I mean, with us, is the strongest it's ever been. We used to complain that they're paying 2%, but they're not paying. The United States was paying almost everything. And now they're paying 5%, and they've paid. And that's trillions of dollars. You know, we're talking about trillions of dollars. And they're spending that, giving that money to us, and we are giving them great.
Okay, guys, in a little bit, I'm going to put on Nick Fuentes and one of his majorly polarizing discussions that he had.
We appreciate that they did that. So they went from 2% to 5% of GDP, and that was something that nobody even would bring up. Biden should have brought it up a long time ago, because under Biden, we paid $350 billion, and all it did is make things worse. So we'll see how it goes. Go ahead, just finish. Yeah, go ahead.
Turkey, fighter jets, F-35s.
We're talking about fighter jets for Turkey. Yes, we are.
Just waiting to see if they have any good questions.
Step is going to be taken today about the issue, about the things that are going on in the Gaza, Palestine. Are we going to?
It could be today. Yeah, it could be today. We have a very strong dialogue going on with Arabia. With I would say you have 4 or 5 real leaders that are being good. As you know, I met with Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE. We met with Jordan. The King of Jordan was there. We had a really great meeting.
Okay, guys, are there any of you that want to jump on and have your voice heard, be on live? I'm taking calls. I'm going to take calls. We're going to watch Nick Fuentes, okay? I've been watching a lot of his clips, and there's some interesting ones. Here's one that I haven't seen. I'm going to put this one on.
We talk about this, by the way.
And so if you guys are curious about this one here, let me see. Here we go. You guys know who this guy is? And we're going to go ahead and listen to see what exactly, who is, I want to find out who is Nick Fuentes. This is new to me, and I watched some clips, and it's wild. And I do want to take your guys' phone calls. I'm going to have you guys on, so if you guys want to join by means of Instagram, I'm going to call you. So basically, you got to follow me, and I got to follow you back, and then I'll open a chat, a DM with you, and then I'll call you through the DM chat. And for those of you wondering, this is, I'll just show you my Instagram right here. Here is my Instagram. Let me go like this here. So no takers on jumping on live. You guys afraid? You guys got stage fright? Okay, so here is my Instagram. You can see my name right above, right up here. If you do want to join on live, let me know. I'll reach out to you. I'll follow you, and I can start a DM, and we can go ahead and do a call through Instagram DM. Okay. So let me know when you guys are ready. I'll be happy to put you guys on. Okay. But now what we're gonna do is talk about Nick Fuentes. Who is Nick Fuentes, guys? This is interesting. I'm very curious to see this discussion right here. So let's see what he says. People saying that Charlie Kirk is with Tupac. I grew up in the era of Tupac. I listened to Tupac right when his music was coming out in my lowered Honda Accord with subwoofers that I built myself. And the big conspiracy was that Tupac is still alive. How much we wished that was true when we were kids. But we live on to see another day. And a lot of these guys don't, unfortunately. So anyway, let's keep living on. You guys ready? Again, if you haven't heard me, I'm going to take your calls, and we're going to talk about some stuff. And if you want to have your voice heard and you don't have stage fright, let me know. We'll talk. We'll put you on live. Here we go.
The way I know a lot of black people.
I'm going to play this Nick Fuentes. It's about black people and what Nick Fuentes says. So let's see what he's saying.
The reason that we talk about this, by the way, I know a lot of black people see this and they go, man, why are you always talking about black people, this and that? Because there just needs to be some shame here. Well, there's a few reasons. First, white people are every single bit justified in being racist. Every single bit justified, to the extent that that means going out of your way to avoid black people when you see them. Every bit justified. And you want to know why? Because we see what happens. And nobody is under any obligation due to liberal ideology to put themselves in harm's way. If you're a white person and you're going to work or going to the ball game or going to the city at night, you don't want to enter into the Terror Dome where you're suddenly in a sudden death match. You're like in the gulag in Call of Duty fighting for your life all of a sudden because you got on the wrong train car. Because a car full of black people pulled up on you by the bus stop. You turn and you walk the other way. You avoid their neighborhoods. You avoid going out on Memorial Day or Labor Day weekend at night in certain places. When you see them, you start walking in the other direction. And
I figured this out when I was like 11, 12 years old.
I mean, I'm black and I think this way.
And a lot of black people feel this way.
Yeah, a lot of black people think this way.
Yeah. They don't want to say it out loud, though. But Nick Fuentes is that real. He'll say it.
We are every bit justified because we see what's going on and we don't want to die. It's that simple. That's pattern recognition. That's not racism. That's pattern recognition. That's one. And two, I really hope, because I'm rooting for black people, like I'm rooting for humanity. I'm rooting for everybody to be safe and to be healthy and to be happy. I really hope that somewhere out there, although I'm not optimistic, black people are starting to develop some sense of self-awareness. Where's the shame? Aren't you people ashamed? When I see these clips of the graduation ceremonies where they're twerking on stage and dancing, when I see these videos of the black cheerleaders on the basketball court brawling it out, when I see the Carmelo Anthony, and not only that, but then they raise $500,000 for him and then they get a public defender. When I see that video of a black security guard rifling through the pockets of an unconscious white guy that got his ass kicked, and the list goes on and on and on. You have to ask the black people that are normally so proud, and with the chip on their shoulder, aren't you ashamed? Are you not ashamed when you see these things?
They're not ashamed. They rationalize and say, you know what, we've been through hell in this country for hundreds of whatever to say. Because of this country's systemically racist past, they will justify the things that they do. And that's why they do the things that they do.
Yeah. But which
is totally wrong, by the way.
Yeah, which none of us have experienced 400 years of oppression. Not one black person can say that, but they like to put themselves in that position like they've been suffering for 400 years, even though they've been on this planet maybe 24, 25 years. All that's been taught to them is just to hate white people, hate the American flag, just hate society in general. Just everything is not their fault. So in a sense, you can say it's cultural. It's cultural, you know? Everything is somebody else's fault. That's why they behave that way.
Oh, he's white. I'm gonna go and go through his wallet. He's got insurance. He'll be okay. He's white. He has white privilege.
Right.
That's the mindset, and that's what they use to justify what they're doing. They actually don't think they're doing anything wrong.
You know why? Crazy. You know why? Low capacity.
Some of it, Kevin, but
Keith, yeah, some of it, yeah, but if somebody tells you it's okay to go through that man's pants after he get the shit kicked out of him because he's white, would you do that?
No,
of course not. Because I would argue that you are, above average intelligence. The people that's doing that, they are below average intelligence.
Yeah.
Are there any black people that see this and have the slightest lick of self-awareness, of common sense, of decency to say, are you not ashamed to see these scenes play out over and over again? Where's the accountability? And this is where that word fatigue comes in. We're just tired of seeing it. You see these clips and you know every race of person, maybe except for most blacks, white, Chinese, Indian, Hispanic, and even liberals see these clips and they say, are you surprised? They shake their heads. They say, yep. Usual suspects.
You have to think people who vote for Democrats,
progressives,
they have black fatigue, but they won't come out and say it.
But then we'll call it out because we're black, and it should be a position, me being a black man, hey, I'm trying to help uplift the black community, but no, they call you. Why is that, Keith? Why would they call you a sellout if you're trying to help black people?
Kevin, I think they've been brainwashed. I don't think it's low capacity.
Guys, let me know if you want to jump on live. I'm happy to take your phone calls, and we can talk on live. You can have your voice be heard. For those of you that feel certain ways about some things, let me know. Be happy to put you on. Don't worry about stage fright. I'll make you feel comfortable and stuff. We'll just chat, so no big deal. But But yeah, so I'm watching Nick Fuentes right now. I'm trying to learn more about him. This is something recent that I didn't know about. I didn't know much about Nick Fuentes, but apparently he's very polarizing, and I'm trying to figure out why and what is it he's saying and what is he all about. So let me know, guys. Again, let me know in the chat if you want. Game ready for life. Thank you for subscribing, brother. Appreciate you so much, or girl. I don't know. Nick Fuentes jump scare. Yeah, just watching Nick to see what is this guy about. I had no idea. Game ready says he's a doofus. And I just started watching his clips last night, but guys, like I said, let me know if you want to be on. I'll put you on. I can take your phone calls live, and people can hear you. Here we go.
I think it's below average intelligence.
I think it's brainwashing.
No, man, can't nobody be that brainwashed.
It's brainwashing.
That's brainwashing?
Yeah, they brainwashed with some Clorox.
Well, why haven't we been brainwashed?
God, I guess.
They say, yep.
That's a good question. I like what they just talked about. So these two guys were just talking. They're like, well, these guys are they're saying a lot of black people are brainwashed. And then they said, well, why aren't we brainwashed? That's a great question of why can some people feel one way and some people feel another way. And I guess this is a discussion that I just was watching yesterday about. I can't remember who it was. I think it was also like Jordan Peterson. No, not Jordan Peterson. Jesse Lee, and the Fallen State. And we'll probably watch some of that too, just to get an idea of what's going on. But he said they say, like, why is it that some black people are always looking through the lens of being a victim, and some of them are killing it, just doing so well and so successful. And that's a question that it's interesting to hear the answer to that. So let's keep going.
That's about right. Are you not ashamed? And when are black people going to turn that around?
Never.
I'm so sick of, and I think all of society is sick of hearing about all these excuses. And even the conservative blacks will give them, like Jason Whitlock is a perfect example. When I gave a similar monologue about Austin Metcalf and Carmelo Anthony, Jason Whitlock, who's a black conservative at the Blaze, said that this is a demonic sentiment. He said the problem is a lack of Christianity or something or other. The problem is a lack of accountability.
Pose it. It's lack of a soul.
Yeah.
I don't need Christianity to make me feel to do good things.
Yeah, they don't have a conscience.
Hell, look at half the Christians just, condoning what's going on overseas in these wars.
Yeah, in Israel.
And they're Christians.
Yeah. And they justify it because they're God's chosen people. Yeah. I don't think it has anything to do with Christianity.
Yeah.
I just think these people do not have a conscience.
Yeah. You gotta have a conscience.
Yeah. And I don't think you can teach that.
No.
And I think a lot of black people hide behind these various things, whether it's
Pizza Boy says, I genuinely hate this world. It's just people beefing 24/7. Nobody gets along. This is something that I was discussing yesterday. A lot of people in my chat the day before yesterday were saying, oh, you Americans are more divided than any other country we know. And it's like, it may sound like that to you because we have open debate and we argue fiercely, we debate fiercely, we have awesome dialogue because we allow for that. And our media is going to push the extremes the most. And so it seems like that. But we love being American. We love each other and we will back each other up. And the last thing you want is to bring Americans together for a cause against you. We're American. We love America. And you're saying here people just beefing 24/7. We're talking. We're having dialogue. And that's, I think, one of the best things that we can have as America. That's the best thing that one of the greatest. That's our First Amendment, right? And so I think it's great to have this dialogue. And some see it as beefing. and others see it as getting to the bottom of things. And I'll tell you what, I said this yesterday, I'll say it again. The people that I'm closest to are the people that I've gotten in fights with. If you guys remember, I don't know, if you were like me growing up in middle school, high school, people that I got in physical fights with are the people that became my best friends. People that I, even growing up after high school and all that kind of stuff and out of college, people that I had the hardest, fiercest discussions with are the people that I became really good friends with. So these debates, and I think, you know, when we go at it with each other, we learn so much about each other and we come closer together. So anyway, with that said, let's continue.
It's the liberals that say it's slavery and racism, or it's the conservatives, and they blame it on welfare, hip hop, or the Great Society.
Yeah. I can't even listen to hip hop music anymore. Rap music is just disgusting.
And we used to use that as a crutch. So that's why the black community is all messed up, because of our culture, our community, our music. No, you have to take some accountability. You have to have a conscience of what you're doing. Yeah. Black people don't have it.
It starts with you. It starts with every individual black person making choices, like we all do. No, who's raising these fucking people? Who's raising these people? It's other black people. It's baby mamas and baby daddies. I mean, who's perpetuating this? And who does it benefit to make these excuses and to say it's everybody else?
Democrats.
Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's cultural.
Democrats are going to save you.
I don't think it's cultural just because the music we listen to is...
Yeah, I know. White people don't fall for it. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Just black people.
So I see this stuff and look, yeah, we are going to call it out. We, the Americans, we the white people of America, we the peaceful, law-abiding, tax-paying people of America are saying, hey, blacks, get your shit together. Get your shit together. We are tired of you. We are tired of seeing this stuff. It always seems to be you. Yep. Do you know that, and I'm just expressing what is a common sentiment. Do you know that everybody thinks that if we snapped our fingers and you all disappeared tomorrow, everybody thinks our quality of life would go up?
Yeah, it would definitely go up. Definitely. Well, we're the third biggest demographic in the country, right? But we account for a majority of the violent crime. So instantly, if we was to, black people, our people, was to disappear overnight, you could almost close down a majority of the prisons in the country. That's saying something. How does 13% of the population account for a majority of violent crime in this country?
Because the white man's out to get them.
Do you realize that?
Okay, guys, I got someone that wants to come on, and while we're watching this, I'm going to try to get her on. It looks like her name is Iolani Grace. I am connecting with her via Instagram direct message, and I'm going to make a phone call through Instagram to her. If you're still there, I'm going to reach out to you. So I'm going to hit play, and once we're connected, I'll put her on.
I'm just saying it. Everyone's thinking it.
Yeah, everyone's thinking that.
No matter who you are, black, white.
Yeah, everybody knows this. The only people that doesn't realize this are black people.
Why is that?
When we think of what's wrong with Chicago, it's like utopia. Chicago's like a utopia. Beautiful riverfront, beautiful lakefront, concerts in the park, ball games in the park, beautiful architecture, the best food. You know what the one problem is with Chicago that's driving the businesses out of the Magnificent Mile? You know what the one problem is that's making the public transit unusable? You know what the one problem is that's driving richer residents from the city? It's the crime. It's the chaos. It's the violence. And you know what demographic is almost exclusively responsible for it? It's you. It's black people.
Yep.
Everyone's thinking that. Everyone's fucking sick of it. And the way that society is going, stuff is too expensive. Wages are too low. Housing is too expensive. We work too hard to then spend our hard-earned money to go to Lollapalooza, spend our hard-earned money for a fun weekend in the city, God knows how expensive it is to eat out nowadays or to take an Uber. And then to constantly have to be worrying about this. God knows how expensive it is to afford to live in a nice city like New York or Chicago. And then to have to put up with that.
Yeah, perfect example, Cincinnati, what happened downtown, those people.
People are, I think, now too broke to be woke. People are too broke, work too hard just to be dealing with this kind of stuff and hear BLM and to hear these excuses about slavery and racism and the white privilege. It's enough. So the shame will continue. The shaming of the black community in America will continue until it improves. Yes, we will shake our heads. We will exchange that knowing glance. We will make that face. We will comment. Well. We will name and shame. We will turn and walk away. We will move to neighborhoods where you are not until it improves. And you can deal with each other. Brandon Johnson and the teachers union and all these thugs and opportunists, Jason Whitlock, all the wokesters, everyone making excuses. You can all live in Wakanda. You can keep all that black excellence for yourself. We're good. And you know what? I'm rooting for you. I'm praying for you. I hope you figure it out for your sake,
Grace,
for our sake. But we're done.
You now.
And how long before a U.S. presidential candidate gets up and identifies the problem? Because the second that candidate comes up, that person's going to win in a landslide.
Think so? Should, huh?
Well, Trump's pretty much said he's going to be tough on crime, but he's not calling out or singled out a demographic of people.
Right.
Yeah.
He said whoever does that first is going to win in a landslide.
Yeah, like Reagan Mondale, probably.
Because we're sick of it. We want our lives back. We want our cities back. We don't want to feel anxious all the time. We don't want to feel afraid all the time. We don't want to live in fear that we're going to wake up and someone's going to steal our car and then we might get in trouble if we respond in the wrong way. Or we're going to be on a subway and get a knife pulled on us and we're going to get ordered to the ground for defending ourselves. It's insane. It's utterly insane, and we all know what's going on. So I saw this Raja Jackson thing, and whatever. I mean, it's live streaming, it's professional wrestling. Who knows what's real and what's fake? The reason that it provoked this response is because we've seen the scene. We've seen it before 1 million times, and it's infuriating. And as I said, it's not just the violence. It's this almost pathological, evil, anti-human cruelty, disregard for human life, malevolence. And then listen, people get in altercations, people get in fights. Sometimes there's violence. It is what it is. We all know this is what they do. They attack in packs. They stomp the head. That's what they go for. And it's evil.
Okay.
And that needs to be called out. It needs to be called out by the black people. And if black people want to be loud and proud, they want to be talking about the black community, you must be equally loud in your condemnation of this kind of stuff than you are in your praise
you mean on my phone?
when it's the positive things. You can't have it. It's not a one-way street when it comes to that sort of thing.
Hi.
I freeze that looks crazy as hell. Let me freeze it right here.
I'm gonna put you here.
That looks better.
Yeah. Another mic drop from Nick Fuentes.
Hang on 1 second.
Yeah.
Guys, I want to put Grace on in a sec.
Speaking from a black perspective, you can't fix this.
Yeah.
You're not gonna fix it.
I think it's genetic. I think it's hardwired, not DNA.
Well, okay, I think it's brainwashing.
You got to have a brain to watch, Keith. I don't think there's a brain there to watch.
I think it's brainwashing. Because, man, you was...
Okay, guys, I'm back, and I have, I believe your name was...
Ilani.
Say it again?
Ilani.
Ilani.
Ilani.
Ilani. How are you? Good to meet you.
I am well. I just happened to see you had a live on, and I follow you, and I jumped on, and I've been on for a while, and I'm like, yeah, I'll jump in.
Guys, this is Iolani. I just put her Instagram on the screen so you can see who you're talking to. This is Iolani Grace. So what's
Hi,
everybody. So where are you from?
Well, I'm from Santa Cruz, California, but for the last 17 years, I live in the Byron Shire, Australia. But I am very much an American.
So you live in Australia, but are you born and raised in America?
Born and raised in America, yeah.
Right on, right on.
And I'm like totally holding the light for America and switched on. And so, yeah, here I am.
Right on. And so at what point of my live stream did you jump in? Like what part were you watching?
Before I jumped, I've been on for about 25 minutes or whenever I don't know, for a while. There's only been like just me, and then other people dropped in. And then you had this guy talking about like the black and white situation, and I'm like, tell me, like, what is your goal? Because I have a lot of experience. I lived 20 years in New York City. I've lived in California. I've been around. I traveled and lived around the world. I have a lot of experience. I'm going to be 63. So, and I have like best friends that are African American. And so I'm trying to get what the point is. And I think I might have something to offer.
Yeah. So I'll tell you just my point with this, and we'll get to his point maybe, and we can talk about that. But
I can't see your face. I see your wall.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
There you go. There you are. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm running the whole entire live in the whole studio, so it's just a lot going on. But
where are you located?
I'm in Southern California. I'm born and raised in Southern California.
Okay, we're Californians.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm a product of immigrants.
I have a lot of experience and a lot of African American friends. So I'm wondering what your goal is and if I can offer something at this time.
Sure.
It's an interesting navigation.
It might be back now. It might be back. Hang on one second. One second.
Okay.
Let me just take a look here.
I'm holding the light.
And we might be back. We might be back. Okay. Guys, I think the live stream is back. Yep, we are back. Okay.
Okay, great.
So
yay! Hi,
So guys, I have a caller that called in. I'm talking to Yolani Grace. You're looking at her. That's her on the screen on the top, and you're looking at her Instagram page. And we were just watching this. We're watching Nick Fuentes here, and we're talking about. He's talking about black people, and Ilani is asking me what am I trying to do. I'm trying to learn, and I just learned about this guy Nick Fuentes, and I'm trying to like watch his clips and see what he's all about. And in this particular clip, he's talking about black people, but in general, he has a lot of polarizing positions that he holds, and so he's all over the place. But so tell me, Ilani, what's your take on the discussion that Nick Fuentes was having? What do you think?
Well, from my perspective, it's about consciousness and frequency. So he's still holding a consciousness of the division of black and white and this and that. And in my field, in my world, it's about unity. So the more we come together. And so I have an experience I lived in New York City. I performed at Carnegie Hall when I danced in professional ballet companies. And that's how I came to New York when I was 19. I'm going to be 63. And I had like the majority of my friends were African American, and I was in an African dance company, and it was all inclusive. So there wasn't this division of black and white, but yet I lived in alphabet land, in the avenues A, B, and C and things, if you know New York at all. When you couldn't go there without protection. But I lived there, and it was okay because I knew the community. I feel that it's about community and
Back. I think our stream is back up, hopefully soon. Okay, there we are. We're back on. Let's go back to Nick Fuentes and see what they have to say.
I was kind of caught up in his stuff when he was younger.
Yeah, but we figured it out, though.
Yeah, yeah.
What age did we figure that out at?
So this is the part that was interesting. Let's pull it back.
Going on. I'm rooting for you. Heads. We will exchange that knowing glance. We will make that face. We will comment. Well. We will name and shame. We will turn and walk away. We will move to neighborhoods where you are not until it improves. And you can deal with each other. Brandon Johnson and the teachers union and all these thugs and opportunists, Jason Whitlock, all the wokesters, everyone making excuses. You can all live in Wakanda. You can keep all that black excellence for yourself. We're good. And you know what? I'm rooting for you. I'm praying for you. I hope you figure it out for your sake, for our sake, but we're done. And how long before a U.S. presidential candidate gets up and identifies the problem? Because the second that candidate comes up, that person's going to win in a landslide.
Think so? Should, huh?
Well, Trump's pretty much said he's going to be tough on crime, but he's not calling out or singled out a demographic of people.
Right.
Yeah.
He said whoever does that first is going to win in a landslide.
Yeah, like Reagan Mondale, probably.
Because we're sick of it. We want our lives back. We want our cities back. We don't want to feel anxious all the time. We don't want to feel afraid all the time. We don't want to live in fear that we're going to wake up and someone's going to steal our car and then we might get in trouble if we respond in the wrong way. Or we're going to be on a subway and get a knife pulled on us and we're going to get ordered to the ground for defending ourselves. It's insane. It's utterly insane, and we all know what's going on. So I saw this Raja Jackson thing, and whatever. I mean, it's live streaming, it's professional wrestling. Who knows what's real and what's fake? The reason that it provoked this response is because we've seen the scene. We've seen it before 1 million times, and it's infuriating. And as I said, it's not just the violence. It's this almost pathological, evil, anti-human cruelty, disregard for human life, malevolence. And then listen, people get in altercations, people get in fights. Sometimes there's violence. It is what it is. We all know this is what they do. They attack in packs. They stomp the head. That's what they go for. And it's evil. And that needs to be called out. It needs to be called out by the black people. And if black people want to be loud and proud, they want to be talking about the black community, you must be equally loud in your condemnation of this kind of stuff than you are in your praise when it's the positive things. You can't have it. It's not a one-way street when it comes to that sort of thing.
I freeze that looks crazy as hell. We freeze it right here. That looks better.
Yeah. Another mic drop from Nick Fuentes.
Yeah. Speaking from a black perspective, you can't fix this.
Yeah.
You're not gonna fix it.
I think it's genetic. I think it's hardwired in our DNA.
Well, I think it's brainwashing.
You got to have a brain to watch, Keith. I don't think there's a brain there to watch.
I think it's brainwashing. Because me and you was kind of caught up in this stuff when I was younger.
Yeah, but we figured it out, though.
Yeah, yeah.
What age did we figure that out at?
Early 20s. Well, I knew it was something up with us, our people, when I was 12, 13.
When we was 12, 13 years old.
But I used to play the race card when I was younger.
Yeah.
Like the white man's out to get me. But as I got older and matured, I'd seen that that's not the case.
That's systemically white racist.
So we were.
That's interesting for them to say. You guys hear that? He's saying when he was younger, he used that. He did that. And he had that mentality of the white man's out to get me. And he says he grew out of it. So let's listen.
I was afflicted by that.
Yeah. But that's systemically white racist.
So we was. Well, I knew it was something up with us, our people, when I was 12, 13.
When we was 12, 13 years old.
But I used to play the race card when I was younger.
Yeah.
Like the white man's out to get me. But as I got older and matured, I'd seen that that's not the case.
That's systemically white racist.
So we was afflicted by that.
Yeah. But we see grown black men in their 50s, 60s still think that way.
Well, it's called brainwash.
No, man. That's called lack of a moral compass and a conscience. Yeah.
Okay, guys. So that was a good one. That was a good conversation.
Reason that we talk about.
And I want to learn more about Nick Fuentes. But before I do that, I'm going to go over to here and go over to here. So just All right. I'm going to my Instagram, guys, and I'm curious about what you guys think about reparations. Now that we're talking about this stuff, before we go back to more Nick Fuentes, I want to know what are your thoughts about about reparations? Do you guys agree or disagree with reparations? This is my Instagram, guys. I'm just scrolling through to find that part. If you guys don't know, I do live street interviews. This is me right here doing out there interviewing people. Let's see here. Where is here we go. You guys ready for this? You guys ready? And let me put this on one. No, I agree with reparation.
What my ancestors went.
Okay, I'm gonna put this on from the beginning. You guys ready? Here we go.
I want money for what my ancestors went through.
And how much do you want?
Give me between 300,000 to $1 million.
You personally want 300,000 to $1 million.
Yes.
Of your reparation money.
Right.
And what did you do to earn that money?
I was born, and I come from the lineage of Black American slaves, and we never got our reparations.
At what point will the blacks stop begging and blaming?
Begging?
And blaming.
Who's begging?
The blacks.
I don't know who's begging.
For
what are they begging
reparations?
For? Arguing that we deserve reparations and affirmative action.
When will they stop begging?
When you give it to us.
And what is it that you want?
I want reparations. I want my money.
You want money?
Yes.
Your money.
I'm a foundational Black American. I want money for what my ancestors went through.
So, guys, you guys just saw that. What are your thoughts on that now that we're having this discussion? So I'm going to play this one more time. Ready? Here we go.
I want money for what my ancestors went through.
And how much do you want?
Give me between 300,000 to $1 million.
You personally want 300,000 to $1 million.
Yes.
Of your reparation money.
Right.
And what did you do to earn that money?
I was born, and I come from the lineage of Black American slaves, and we never got our reparations.
At what point will the blacks stop begging and blaming?
Begging?
And blaming.
Who's begging?
The blacks.
I don't know who's begging.
For
what are they begging
reparations?
For? Arguing that we deserve reparations and affirmative action.
When will they stop begging?
When you give it to us.
And what is it that you want?
I want reparations. I want my money.
You want money?
Yes.
Your money.
I'm a foundational Black American. I want money for what my ancestors went through.
So there you have it. There's that. Let's see what you guys are saying here. It's real easy to agree with free money regardless of the circumstance tied to it. Oh yeah, me too. Yeah, so I don't agree with reparations. I don't agree with it, and I don't think it'll help us out in any way, get us anywhere. So that was that. And so we're gonna get back to more Nick Fuentes, okay? And we also had Trump. Let's see what's happening here live.
I think a lot was determined at that meeting, and I have to meet with Israel, and I have to do that also. They know what I want, and I think we can get that one done. I hope we can get it done. A lot of people are dying. But we want the hostages back. We don't want them back, one this week, 1 and 2 months from now, 3 later, and like the way it's been going. We got them all back. We got a lot of them back. We got the American Alexander. We got the American hostages back. But we have now 20 plus 38 bodies, dead bodies. And we want them all back, and we want them back at one time. Go ahead.
Okay, so there you have that.
The Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance.
Our positions, whether in support or restraint,
are always guided by a deeper purpose, the pursuit of peace that is just, lasting, and stable. We believe that a durable solution, one that envisions two peoples, Israelis and Palestinians, living in two democratic states,
What's your
side by
solution?
side, in peace and in dignity and security.
I'm going to pause this real quick and just say that I've been watching these UN speeches, and a lot of countries get up on the stage and they say all kinds of nice things, and they talk about they want goodness for humanity, and they want everyone to do the right thing, and they want people to live and thrive, but they offer no solutions. They're just giving scripted speeches. I don't hear any solution. Give us a solution.
Within mutually recognized borders is essential for lasting peace. Russia's unprovoked war against Ukraine is a stark reminder that when international law is disregarded, peace everywhere is placed at risk. It is only through respect for the rules-based order that all nations, large and small, can live securely. Continuing in that spirit of respect for life and stability, I must raise an important issue of principle. Years ago, China wrongly interpreted UNGA Resolution 2758. And today, it continues to claim that Taiwan is a part of the People's Republic. The end result has been Taiwan been silenced.
Okay,
the
guys.
23 million people.
I can't take that anymore. That's just too boring. A bunch of virtue signaling is all that's happening. So we're going to go back to Nick Fuentes, and we're going to listen to see what he's saying here. So this is a very interesting conversation. So I'm going to get this started, and here we go.
Do you want to get married?
Yeah, I want to get married, but more out of necessity of like producing a male heir is really the whole point.
No, I'm just listening. I'm just observing. You can keep going. Continue.
She's like, we can keep going. No,
because I mean, I would prefer to get a handle on what you think from your mouth.
That's very
before
Chinese
I
of
say
him,
anything.
though. You know, just only men. So he doesn't want any female children. It's very Chinese.
Yeah, no, I think they're awake on this question. You know, I mean, as far as like marriage
it's
goes,
more about population control there rather than, getting rid of women.
It's like the old world stuff about like a dowry and like, gendered stuff and all that. But, at least for me, it's sort of like a pride thing. Like I want to produce a male heir to take on my name, take on my legacy and all that. And, marriage is sort of pursuant to that goal. But, I don't know about this whole prospect of like living with a woman for the rest of my life. Like, it sounds good at first. It sounds like kind of fun or interesting. You don't have to do laundry. You don't have to worry about kind of taking care of the house. But, then the prospect of just like, it goes on and on and on. And it's decade after decade after decade. And, I don't know how thrilled I am with that whole idea. I'm kind of a solitary individual. I like my privacy. I like my autonomy. And just the idea of like nagging GF, nagging wife, it's a little nightmarish to me.
Do you have a good relationship with your mom?
I love my mom. Yeah, I love my mom.
Mm-hmm. Is your mom a stay-at-home mom? What does she do?
Yeah, so she works now, but when me and my sister were growing up, she raised me. She quit her job to stay at home and raise us.
And what's your sister like? Do you get on with her?
Yeah, she's my twin. She's probably the opposite of me. She's more calm, sort of introverted. Yeah, but we get along.
Do you respect women?
Of course.
But you just don't want them to have any rights.
Well, I didn't say that. I
Okay.
didn't say they shouldn't have rights.
But if I'm understanding your question correctly, if you don't want them to vote or drive or have an existence akin.
No, he's not trolling. This is Nick Fuentes. That's why I'm trying to learn about this guy, because I just found out, and it's very interesting. And I'm figuring it out. right now. I literally just started watching his clips last night.
Is what they would have in, say, Saudi Arabia. You would say that in large part, then they don't really have rights.
Well, I would say probably the ideal is something more like Afghanistan, if I'm being totally honest. Like recent,
so what's the difference between
Afghanistan
then and Saudi Arabia?
Like the brutality, I guess. It's like a little slightly more brutal. Of course, Taliban rule, not American rule. I'm talking about, recent Afghanistan.
So you want women to have the same treatment as women have under Taliban rule in Afghanistan?
Something approximating that, yeah, because, you think about the Taliban and, what they're able to achieve. Here you have these guys with nothing but, some light arms and rags and 20 years, and they were able to defeat the largest military in history. I think that has something to do with the fact that they weren't, distracted. They weren't distracted with the kinds of things we are in America. They weren't being nagged. They weren't being bossed around by women. And, now they've got this society where there's this brutality, like I said, this old world sort of order. And you bring up voting. I don't see really voting as a right, if I'm being totally honest. It's not just women. There's a lot of people that really shouldn't be voting anymore.
Such as?
I saw this yesterday. This is very interesting, guys. Listen to this. I'm going to rewind it. Just listen to what he says here.
There's a lot of people that really shouldn't be voting anymore.
Such as?
Maybe people that don't own property, young people that work retail jobs. As an example, really? Well,
no,
hear me out.
People that work retail jobs.
Well,
okay, I think we can all get on board with that national movement. It's with the service that you're getting, it's man, you couldn't even get my change right. I don't know if you're going to be able to pick the correct president of the United States.
I was in Lowe's earlier, and a young man helped me who's actually a fan of both of us, who was super lovely, and I would like him to vote. He was great. He was very clever.
Well, the thing about retail or these service jobs is you look at these young people, it's a lot of millennials, Generation Z, and they really don't know how things work. You know what I mean? If you own a business, if you own property, even if you're a homeowner, you kind of have an idea of how things work, where things come from and some idea of how the economy works. And, if your whole life is okay, you're in school, you're a student, you pay rent. You know what I mean? You don't even manage how your apartment runs. How should you have a say in how the country is run? You don't even really know how anything comes together in society. So, the old way in America was that it was, of course, propertied white men. It was a very narrow group of people that were able to vote. And that's because the founding fathers didn't really believe in mass democracy, universal suffrage. They believed in checks and balances, and kind of voting was a part of checking the power of the ruling class or the regime with the power of the people. But they weren't under any illusions about this idea that every person should have a vote. One man, one woman, one child, one vote. They didn't believe that. So that's not how the country was founded. That's not how the system was set up. And that was for a reason. So I think it was a big mistake in the past 100 years to just open it up to everybody. We have to think about how we're going to have competent government and who's going to make those choices. And, we have to think competent people should be making those choices.
If I were to ask you, let's start with rights. Okay, let's start with access to something very simple. Let's go to an amendment. Let's go to 19th Amendment. Right? Let's start there. Let's just start there.
All right.
All right. What do you thought? All right. Day one gone.
It shouldn't be there.
I have a question though. Have you ever lived in any other country besides the United States?
Nope.
Okay.
What is the 19th Amendment, guys? Do you guys know what it is? I'm going to pull this up right now. 19th Amendment. 19th Amendment, U.S. Prohibits denying the right to vote based on sex, granting women the right to vote. Okay, got it. Voter rights. Okay. Back to Nick.
Okay, so when you talk about many of these things, these are just from an observational standpoint where you've done a lot of reading and observed a bunch of things.
Yes.
And then arrived at your conclusions based on that.
Yes.
But you have no practical experience living under, say, a more authoritarian rule.
No. Well, I mean, I already live under something like authoritarianism in America. I'm on the no-fly list. I'm being persecuted. The thing is about authoritarianism is it can't be condemned in itself, because the character of the regime isn't really authority. The authority is colored by the people that are in authority.
Not to interrupt you, sorry, but just to back up for a second. So you're currently on a no-fly list based on the authoritarianism that's going on in the country.
Right.
Now, that authoritarianism, you could argue, is from the left, and the left are very happy that they have that authoritarianism. So what you want is right-wing authoritarianism.
Yes.
But your issue is with left-wing authoritarianism.
The problem is not authoritarianism. The problem is leftism.
What about the people on the left who think of you and go, well, I don't want to live under his rule of law? Because obviously there are people who don't think like you do.
This is the essence of politics. This is the essence of politics, is that there is an us and there is a them. There are right-wing people and there are left-wing people, and you know, people have varying identities with different levels of salience. But yes, the problem is that we are not in control of the regime, ultimately. The problem is not the regime itself or power, because the thing is, and this is the problem, is that conservatives are sort of naive about power. Power, you know, we're not getting rid of it anytime soon. You know, this idea of like, take over the government to let everybody go and free the people. It's like there will always be concentrated, centralized power. And the question is, well, who's going to wield it? Are we going to forfeit the playing field to the left? This is essentially what conservatives have done because they're averse to rule. You know, like when conservatives...
Okay, gonna speak to what someone just said here. Fuentes is on a no-fly list, or did I hear that wrong? You heard that right. Not only is Fuentes on a no-fly list, they have debanked him. He doesn't hold a bank account. And from what I was listening to in a clip yesterday, they just removed another one of his bank accounts. And the dude has been canceled out of like pretty much every single kind of like a media outlet. He was banned from CPAC. He's on a blacklist from CPAC, even though he is a Republican. Or votes very much, or is very much right wing, obviously. So yeah, he's been persecuted and debanked and on no fly list, and probably the most banned person that I've ever heard of so far.
Is getting control of Congress or the presidency. What do? Do they go aggressively like the left does and wield the bureaucracy and wield the Congress? Or do they kind of just, you know, well, we're going to cut your taxes and we're going to do this and that. And then the left comes in with a vengeance and they say, we're going to use environmental regulations to take your gun rights. And we're going to use the IRS to go after, you know, conservative nonprofits. And we're going to do this and we're going to solidify our rule. And then we are going to set the tone for the country. And conservatives then, you know, even like when Trump gets into office, it's like, what did we accomplish in the first 2 years? When we had Congress, we had the courts, we had the White House, we did a corporate tax cut, barely repealed Obamacare. It's about it. We should have built a wall. We should have went after the endowments for the universities. We should have targeted left-wing institutions. We should have opened up the libel laws and went after the media. So, you know, conservatives just aren't playing the game. We've got to wake up to the reality of power politics, engage and play. And you know, so back to the original point, the problem is not that there is power, that there is authority. There will always be authority. There has to be authority. The question is who is going to wield it? And, you know, right-wing people have to do that, which is why I said earlier, if Trump became like, you know, the Caesar of America, hypothetically, if he had got in 2016 and said, you know what, I'm not leaving, and the courts tell me that I have to leave, well, I'll disobey them, and he went full, you know, Andrew Jackson, I would support it. I wouldn't say, this is authoritarianism. This is in principle wrong. I would say, this is a right man for the job. This is a rightful ruler of America. And, you know, and I would be okay with that.
You know, you bring up Caesar, but didn't that end pretty poorly for them?
No, the empire.
The empire ended pretty poorly, I think.
Yeah, after like, you know, hundreds of years.
Well, we've been around for about 400. How many we got left?
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's just it. The Roman Republic was around, and then it gave birth to a true empire ruled by a Caesar, and then, you know, they reached their zenith under the empire. So I don't necessarily think that's the worst thing in the world.
I just find it interesting, though, that you're you know, promoting these ideas having not ever lived under them. I just find that that's such a, it's, you know, it's odd to say, let's paint the entire house blue when you've never seen a blue house.
Well, I mean, do I need to go to Russia to...
Yes, probably.
Why? I mean, why?
I mean, I'll give you an example. A very good friend of mine who I've known for about 10 years used to be very much like you, actually. And he, you know, he's someone who used to really, really prop up authoritarianism. He used to, and he still believes this in part, that people do need to be governed to a large extent because people, you know, left alone are morons. And that's not saying necessarily that I even disagree with. I think your average person is probably as dumb as a bag of rocks. However, he moved to Singapore, which you could argue is not the worst place in the world. Obviously, it's quite clean. People, you know, follow the law. The crime rate is reasonably low. But after about 2 years of living in Singapore, where they knock on your door, and this has happened to him, where he got dobbed in by his neighbors for having water on his balcony, and they said it's causing a mosquito problem. Now we're at your house, prepared to fine you over mosquitoes. he said to me, I hate living in this country. I hate the authoritarianism here. I hate the way that things operate, because coming from Australia, he's an Aussie. He was like, I much prefer the way that we do things back home, or at least, you know, the freedom that we have. And living in a country where that's staunched in some capacity was really, and is and continues to be, very bothersome and trying for him. And so I just find it interesting, though, that you've only ever lived in the United States. I just you can only do so much reading before practical experience actually should take, you know, some sort of precedence. And I mean, I say the same thing about women too. I mean, I dare say, from my understanding of many of your viewpoints, you also promote like the way of interacting with women. And I go, have you been in a relationship with a woman?
No.
So how are you telling other people how to behave towards women when you yourself have not had any actual physical, you know, interaction with them in a romantic capacity, or in fact in any capacity where you know, uphold them in a way that treats them with respect? I mean, if you're out here arguing that women are basically half the value of, well, you know, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, in fact, because that's not right. But, you know, if you are looking to some other regimes around the world that do think that women are half the value of a man, I have to question what kind of a person who's had no experience with women is in a position to you know, basically promote these ideas.
Well, I'm having an experience with a woman right now, and I've had lots of experiences with women in my life, not romantically per se, but, you know, I've talked to enough women. I've been in, you know, I've known enough women to know sort of what's going on. And I think any man who is observant enough, and honestly, you know, like I said, we could go back to great geniuses. We could go back to people that have been in relationships. Like a perfect example is like the pickup artists. You know, have you ever noticed that pickup artists who have the most relationships with women and the most sex, what they say is that really with women, it's the same bag of tricks to seduce a woman or whatever. And I think that kind of tells you something about the nature of women, that, you know, you go from woman to woman and it's the same kind of like little tricks, little things you could say or whatever to kind of hack them and whatever. And I think that kind of says it all about their nature. So
what
you
does
know,
it say about our nature, Nick?
Well, it says that, you know, they're not fully rational. I don't believe that, like men, they possess a sort of full rationality. I think that
rationality towards what specifically?
Well, rationality just entirely, generally? Sort of objective. Yeah, I don't think they're capable of that. I think that, you know, a male has a real impersonal sense of rationality and reason. I think that a female sense is far more personal, and you know, that derives from the fact that women are made to bear children. You know, women are made with their wombs to bear children, and so I think their whole consciousness is basically, it's wrapped up, it's bound up in this idea that they've got to carry a child and then raise a child. And I think that the impersonality, rationality, objectivity suffers from this. But in any case, to get back to the original question, which is about experience, I don't think that I need to live in Russia to know that we would rather have right-wing people running America than left-wing people. You know, I think that's kind of an asinine sort of thing, which people like to trot out, and they say, well, you haven't, you know, we could qualify it with all kinds of things, but the way that we live in America is unacceptable. I mean, there's homeless people everywhere. The crime's out of control. It's a corrupt country. It's a failing country, and you know, we want to have competent
Nick, around
leadership.
the world that have right-wing leadership still have many of those issues, and in fact, they're exacerbated oftentimes by the governments that are in power. So, and I would say too, I mean, I think it's a bit of a straw man to say that what I'm arguing here. I'm not even arguing. I'm just posing questions, really, because I'm interested to hear your viewpoints. However, I'm not saying. I mean, I agree with you in the sense that we should have, you know, right-wing leadership. I'd prefer to live under a right-wing government, you know, so to speak. Although I am more on Eric's side of things these days, where I'm edging closer and closer towards anarchism. But, you know, I'm not suggesting that I would rather a left-wing government over a right-wing one. I'm simply saying, having never lived under the autocratic rule that you seem to be promoting in some capacity, I'm having a hard time understanding how you can say that this would be the best way to go about doing things when you actually have no practical experience. That's all it is.
Where do we see, I'm wondering
that's
right
all
now,
I'm saying.
But where do we see Christ-based, like, theocratic? I think isn't that more of what you're for, is like more like a
theocracy?
Monarchy?
No, you're talking about theocracy.
No, but not necessarily just theocracy, but I'm just saying, like, in some way with authority.
Like
I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
You mean like the divine right of kings?
But I'm saying that's Muslim. Yeah, but like a Christian version of, let's just say, yeah, maybe a Christian version of Iran, but not the exact government system. I'm just saying, like, where do we actually see that? Because I could just be sounding like an idiot here, but I don't know if we have any of that sanctified or left in its own original state of like a Christian autocratic type of.
That, you know, they're not fully rational. I don't believe that
much reading before practical experience actually should take, you know, it's odd to say, let's pay.
Oh, well, we're going to cut your taxes and we're going to do this. Power, you know, is not, we're not getting rid of it anytime. The problem is leftism.
What about the people on the left who think of you and go, well, I don't want to live under his rule of law? Because obviously there are people who don't think like you do.
This is
We're
the
not a
essence
monolith.
of politics. Conservatives are sort of naive about power.
Okay, I rewinded to this point because I want to hear this again and get your guys' take. What do you guys think about this? He's saying that when people on the left take power, they wield the power and they make lots of big changes to their benefit. But when the people on the right take power, they don't do that as much. So let me know, what do you guys think about this? This is very interesting.
Power, you know, is not, we're not getting rid of it anytime soon. You know, this idea of like, take over the government to let everybody go and free the people. It's like there will always be concentrated, centralized power. And the question is, well, who's going to wield it? Are we going to forfeit the playing field to the left? This is essentially what conservatives have done because they're averse to rule. You know, like when conservatives get in control of Congress or the presidency, what do? Do they go aggressively like the left does and wield the bureaucracy and wield the Congress? Or do they kind of just, you know, well, we're going to cut your taxes and we're going to do this and that. And then the left comes in with a vengeance and they say, we're going to use environmental regulations to take your gun rights. And we're going to use the IRS to go after, you know, conservative nonprofits. And we're going to do this and we're going to solidify our rule. And then we are going to set the tone for the country. And conservatives then, you know, even like when Trump gets into office, it's like, what did we accomplish in the first 2 years? When we had Congress, we had the courts, we had the White House, we did a corporate tax cut, barely repealed Obamacare. It's about it. We should have built a wall. We should have went after the endowments for the universities. We should have targeted left-wing institutions. We should have opened up the libel laws and went after the media. So, you know, conservatives just aren't playing the game. We've got to wake up to the reality of power politics, engage and play. And you know, so back to the original point, the problem is not that there is power, that there is authority. There will always be authority. There has to be authority. The question is who is going to wield it? And, you know, right-wing people have to do that, which is why I said earlier, if Trump became like, you know, the Caesar of America, hypothetically, if he had got in 2016 and said, you know what, I'm not leaving, and the courts tell me that I have to leave, well, I'll disobey them, and he went full, you know, Andrew Jackson, I would support it. I wouldn't say, this is authoritarianism. This is in principle wrong. I would say, this is the right man for the job. This is a rightful ruler of America. And, you know, and I would be okay with that.
You know, you bring up Caesar, but didn't that end pretty poorly for them?
No, the empire.
The empire ended pretty poorly, I think.
Yeah, after like, you know, hundreds of years.
Well, we've been around for about 400. How many we got left?
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's just it. The Roman Republic was around, and then it gave birth to a true empire ruled by a Caesar, and then, you know, they reached their zenith under the empire. So I don't necessarily think that's the worst thing in the world.
I just find it interesting, though, that you're you know, promoting these ideas having not ever lived under them. I just find that that's such a, it's, you know, it's odd to say let's paint the entire house blue when you've never seen a blue.
So we heard this part, but and I'm going to go forward to the other parts here. But what do you guys feel about that? What he said there, because that's interesting. I think I agree with what he said. I got to look into it a little more, but I feel like when Republicans have taken power, I mean, all the way up until this last election with Trump, they really did not make that many changes and do you know, all of the things everyone thinks the right is going to do when they take power. However, when the left takes power, they come in and do all of these big, massive changes. So just curious, do you guys feel that as well?
Or within our lifetimes, I do think that that's certainly achievable.
But I am saying that on the side note, you were noting because yes, we have special buttons.
Job is to provoke, like when I.
But then they interact with like, yeah.
This is interesting. This kind of speaks. This is him speaking to what he does. So let's listen to this.
Called for terrorism, called for the Ku Klux Klan to be reinstated, called for lynchings. Like, I'm going through this article. It's so in depth. And it's basically the end of it was like, this guy makes bad jokes and he says sarcastic things. And he also doesn't know if Biden was there because of votes. And I like read it. I'm like, this is the worst hit piece on this guy. Mm-hmm. And then I realized but like she was saying, it occurred to me, I go, why everyone thinks Nick is the worst guy in the world is because of the way his followers act towards people, and they can't disconnect. No, but I'm saying, like, they can't disconnect because they hear things about you that are exaggerated, but then they interact with, like, you get Groit and they get these people, so they assume they connect it, like, Nick is just trying to, like, infiltrate and hurt my life. But when people meet you like she did, she's like, this is actually not who I thought I was about to meet. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a polite, amicable. I'm a human being. You know, I'm a human being. I'm a free thinker. And, you know, ultimately my job is to provoke. Like, when I decided to do my show, I wanted to do something novel. You know, a lot of people, when they were my age or even my age now, and they start a podcast, they want to start a podcast and they want to do like the Ben Shapiro show too. Like, I'm going to do a show and say the same things that Shapiro does or the same things that, you know, their favorite commentator does. And my idea was, well, I want to go and say what I think, you know, my original thoughts, my thinking. And I think that it's so boring, the expectation that we're going to be in media. We're in this disastrous time right now, catastrophic time. And we're all supposed to go on here and just say, hi, well, great to be here. I love low taxes, and I'm a conservative, and all this kind of stuff. And, like, the idea of my show is, like, let's be provocative. Let's play devil's advocate. You know, when I say things about, like, we should be more like the Taliban, you know, it's partly joking, but there's also partly truth. And that's sort of meant to suss out and antagonize, interrogate the truth, and arrive at maybe, you know, if we can think about the world in a different way, in a way that, you know, maybe we don't think about it usually, in a way that some people think is abhorrent, maybe we could arrive at something more true, certainly something more interesting. And I guess that's the biggest problem is, you know, I don't want to say that my whole life, you know, of course I'm self-righteous and I'm fighting for a cause, but a lot of it is just mischief. A lot of it's just fun. A lot of the things that I do and say, I do without thinking sometimes because they're funny, because they're interesting. It's like, you know, what if we just run with this, like the Cookie Monster thing or whatever. I'm not the kind of guy that says, you know, oh no, we can't say that on this show. That is reprehensible, you know, because we're all adults. We're all in this life. And I think you have to have a sense of humor about it. And that's just one of the things that they weaponize. If you have a sense of humor, if you have any degree of authenticity or realness.
Shapiro was really mad about that.
Well, he doesn't like it. Yeah.
But to your point, Elijah, go ahead. So hold on a second there. And sorry to shush you.
Go ahead.
I get what you're saying, like making jokes and being funny, or at least trying to get your, you know, trying to antagonize people. That's one thing. And there's plenty of people who do that. Like, you're not the first person to try it. And obviously you're quite successful at it. But I would say, I mean, don't you think to some extent that polarizing people doesn't reach, if you really want to get your point across, and you really want to change people's minds, and you really want to push this agenda that you have here to push, because obviously you have strong feelings, and obviously you care about the trajectory of America, probably even the planet, and you do care about right-wing values, and you do care about conservative values. Did you think that perhaps to some extent polarizing people who otherwise might listen to you is maybe not the best course of action? Because obviously there are people who are going to love you regardless, right? There are people who automatically agree with you, who think you're fantastic, and a lot of them in our chat at the moment who really, really think you're wonderful. But then there's a bunch of people who might, you know, warm to your ideas if you weren't saying, like, yeah, let's do this, that, and the other, you know, things that they might find inaccessible. Like, I guess I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, but, you know, in my opinion, the truth.
Guys, I think Trump's giving a speech right now from the White House. Let's take a listen.
Gavin Newsom would be probably the two worst and most naive. They're
This is
naive.
live.
Either they're naive or they're very untruthful. And he'll say, we don't want any protection. We don't need. So in the last 3 weeks, he's lost almost 20 people killed. There's no place in the world, including you can go to Afghanistan, you can go to places that you would think of. They don't even come close to this. Chicago is a hellhole right now. Baltimore is a hellhole right now. Parts of Los Angeles are terrible. If we didn't put out the fires, and I mean the other fires, the bullet fires, they didn't do a good job with, they should have had the water coming down, like I said. You know, we had to release the water. We had to go in and release the water to LA. It's so badly run. But if I didn't send the National Guard into Los Angeles, I would be making an announcement today. I'd be talking about Huntsville, and I'd simultaneously be saying, by the way, the Olympics is not coming to Los Angeles. If we didn't do that, and even the sheriff, the top law enforcement person in Los Angeles said, we could not have handled it without them. So that's what he said.
Make your mind up on Chicago, though?
Well, we're going in. I didn't say when. We're going in. When you lose, look, I have an obligation. This isn't a political thing. I have an obligation. When 20 people are killed over the last 2.5 weeks, and 75 are shot with bullets. So let me tell you a little story about a place called D.C., District of Columbia, right here where we are. It's now a safe zone. We have no crime. It's in such great shape. You can go and actually walk with your children, your wife, your husband. You can walk right down the middle of the street. You're not going to be shot, Peter. You're safe. Everyone likes you anyway. They probably wouldn't do it. But it's so dangerous. And there are people in this audience that you've suffered greatly. There are people in this audience that have been mugged and hurt badly, and they don't want to talk about it. Maybe you were very brave in talking about it. You made quite an impression on a lot of people. I appreciate it. But there were other people in this room that have been hurt very badly just walking down the street in D.C. Washington, D.C. is a safe zone right now. It's a safe city. The restaurants are open. They're booming. You can't get a restaurant. New restaurants are announcing that they're going to be open. This took place in 12 days. Now it's 15 days, but 3 days ago it became what's known as a safe zone. It's a safe city. And this city was really bad, really, really bad. We took 1,600 people out, hardcore criminals that will not be coming back anytime soon. And we're very proud of it. You know, to have our nation's capital lose every week, you know, it was like years, many years where every single
Guys, we have
constitutional weight under Article 2.
hearing going on as well.
Is the act of signing an executive order or signing a law or granting a pardon a delegable duty of the president?
So in that opinion in 2005 from OLC, they said essentially that an auto pen could be used by a subordinate, but the president's determination as to sign the document can never be delegated.
Can that authority be transferred to a staffer or machine without the president's explicit authorization?
Never.
And if you look at the statistics are stunning. In 2021, President Biden issued 78 executive orders. None were signed with an auto pen. That first year of the presidency, Biden, I suppose, was relatively lucid, and 78 executive orders he signed by hand. The second year, however, we see the auto pen emerge. The first auto pen executive order was issued on July 15th, 2022. After that day, 100% of the executive orders issued in 2022 were signed by an auto pen. In 2023, Biden issued 24 executive orders. 16 were auto penned. In 2024, Biden issued 19. 14 were auto penned. In 2025, Biden issued 14 executive orders. Every single one was auto penned. Mr. Wald, let me ask you as a legal matter, if there's a law that's passed both houses of Congress and it goes to the White House, and a staffer auto pens signing that law without the president's authorization, is that law legally passed and signed into law?
No.
If an executive order is issued and a staffer auto pens it without the president's authorization, is that executive order legally binding?
No.
And if a pardon is issued from the President of the United States and a staffer auto pens it without the president's authorization, is that pardon legally binding?
No.
Under the Biden White House, the ceremonial song, Hail to the Chief, was effectively replaced with Hail to the Pen. And it was an outright assault on democracy. And every reporter covering this ought to ask, why doesn't a Democrat care? We heard about the moral responsibilities of a staffer. How about an elected senator who knows damn well that if we get into a war and Iran is preparing to fire a nuclear weapon at the United States, that the commander-in-chief is busy playing with his Jell-O and is not competent to defend ourselves? And every member of the cabinet, the chief of staff, the press secretary, and the members of Congress who lied about this on a daily basis with the press's complicity, they are all responsible for subverting democracy.
Senator Cornyn. Professor Harrison, we've talked about the mechanics of the 25th Amendment, whereby an incapacitated president would be removed. But it strikes me that ultimately it happened, albeit not before the end of President Biden's full term. What we saw happen after the disastrous debate in the summer of 2024 is basically an exercise of the powers of the 25th Amendment by the political elites in the Democratic Party to get President Biden not to run again and to substitute Kamala Harris for him as the Democratic nominee for president. So, Mr. Spicer, maybe the mechanics were a little bit different. Maybe the timing was not the same, but doesn't that demonstrate the capacity of the leadership of the Democratic Party, of the Biden family, of the senior staff and the president's administration to be able to convince the president that he no longer was capable of serving and needed to step down?
Senator, the left and their friends in the media like to throw around terms like threats to democracy, constitutional crisis. And if we don't have confidence in the leader of the free world making decisions, that truly is the definition of a constitutional crisis and the threat to democracy. So for all of these folks to stand up here and use those phrases over and over again and then not have the desire to show up, to understand what's happening, to stand up at the time, as we discussed earlier, whether it was a staffer or a cabinet member, to literally avoid going to the Oval Office. And in the case of the media, to avoid the questions that were so clearly obvious to the rest of America, shows that they were more concerned with power and preserving that power and an agenda than they were at really caring about the Constitution and democracy.
I agree that that is the clear conclusion. And obviously they decided to do it only at such a time as that ability to wield power was coming to an end. If, in fact, President Biden had remained the nominee of the Democratic Party and then ran against and lost to President Trump, these folks would be out of luck and out of power. So they decided to act under that circumstance.
Senator, you look at a lot of these decisions, and it was pretty clear that there was a handful of folks at the top of the Biden administration and Biden White House that had been around him for decades, where all of that information funneled. So I mentioned before, there are approximately 25 senior White House staffers that have the rank of assistant to the president. Those are the highest White House staffers. I would bet that only a handful of them ever interacted with President Biden on a daily basis. The rest of them had their communications funneled through other people. If the press secretary, the communications director, whose job it is to speak on behalf of the principal in lieu of them being able to talk or communicate, don't have access to those individuals at the senior-most level, then what good are they? And I would argue that while many times we heard people in the press and on the left accuse the Trump White House of quote-unquote lying, for them to go out there and talk about the president's stance on issues, what President Biden thought or didn't think on a personnel issue, a policy issue, when in fact they had never spoken to him, is in fact the epitome of lying.
One of the most consequential actions or inactions of the Biden presidency during 4 years was his failures to secure our southern border and to deal with illegal immigration. I have in my hand examples of the Biden immigration proclamations and executive orders, and there are a lot of them, as you know. They also include things like granting temporary protected status to large populations of immigrants, particularly from countries in Central America, rescinding Trump administration policy.
Let's see. We have Kash Patel here. Let's see if this is real.
On the rest of America.
Give me a sec.
This is what happens. It is not a significant mind shift in terms of how we
I think this is live. I'm looking at this. This looks like it is live.
And we've seen many prominent Democrats oppose your efforts to restore law and order to the streets of our nation's capital. I mean, all of us here have seen a dramatic change for the better here in Washington, D.C. Why are so many Democrats attacking you for that?
Sir, Democrats have been attacking me for a decade, as is the fake news media. They didn't like the fact that I exposed the Russiagate host and the largest weaponization of the FBI, DOJ, and U.S. history. We proved it to be true with congressional oversight. I'm wed to that congressional oversight and will continue to do that work.
Christopher Wray repeatedly warned this committee that the Biden open borders policy had produced a significant increase in terrorist threats that he said kept him up at night. A particular concern, he said, was the 2 million gotaways that entered the country during the Biden administration. That's an average of 41,000 every month. What are the monthly gotaway numbers today?
Sir, I'll have to get back to you on the exact gotaway numbers, but identifying that there are gotaways is step one. Going and manhunting them is step two, and that's what we're committing our resources to do.
Well, that's my next question, is what progress has the administration made in apprehending and removing terrorist threats that came in during the Biden years?
I think you're talking about, if you're not, let me know, known or suspected terrorists, and we've encountered almost zero at the southern border since the southern border has been sealed. But the problem that we are running into is our northern border. It's largely expansive. The enemy has adapted, and we need more focus on the northern border to stop known or suspected terrorists from coming in from places like China, Russia, the Middle East, Africa, Afghanistan.
And what can you tell us about the remaining threat posed by potential terrorist cells here in the United States?
The terrorist threat that continues to be posed by international terrorists here in the United States is one of my highest priorities. We are working through our intelligence community partners to identify those individuals, and we've taken down numerous individuals in numerous rings across this country to neutralize that terrorist threat, including places like New York City, Los Angeles, and I believe Dallas, Texas most recently.
How extensively did criminal cartels like Sinaloa, Jalisco, New Generation, MS-13, Tren de Aragua, and others infiltrate our country during the Biden administration?
By the tens of thousands.
Well, and what progress have you been making in combating their presence?
I think the DHS is best to speak to that, but I think I can't remember the numbers of tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of individuals they found that came in illegally, and the tens of thousands that associations to criminal networks have all been deported.
And that effort is being opposed every step of the way by Democratic leaders in our cities, some of our states, and right here in the Congress. Isn't that true?
Well, we're just working where we can in every single city we can, and I welcome the opportunity to partner with Republicans or Democrats on fighting violent crime like we're doing.
Mr. Biggs asked about Arctic frost. What else can you tell us about that and what we need to do to assure that it never happens again?
Continue the congressional.
Okay, that's.
Well, Mr. Spicer, you've criticized the corporate media and legacy media folks for sort of lying down here or being complicit because of their, whether it's Trump derangement syndrome or whatever. The reason was who specifically do you think gets a gold star for lying most profusely and just sort of continuing to cover this up over the years?
Sir, that would be like a photo finish. There'd be a lot that would probably right there at first place. They're all culpable. I mean, I read some of the headlines to the committee earlier, the Washington Post, CNN, NBC, where they, without evidence, to use their phrase, went after President Trump's physical and mental acuity, and yet failed to ask similar questions of the White House press office publicly. They failed to cover the stories. I don't think that there's a winner. I think they're all losers.
Thank you. And then we'll sort of wrap up here with Professor Harrison and Mr. Wold. So moving forward, we mentioned maybe possibly amending the Constitution or further exploring whether incapacitation is an impeachable, if impeachment's a remedy. What other, in your experience, what other things moving forward could be done to make sure that this scenario that we saw play out over the last 4 years never happens again?
Senator, I think the most important thing that can be done is something you're doing right now, which is draw public attention to this problem, and so give presidents an incentive to take steps that will reassure the people that they are sound and able to perform their functions.
Mr. Wall.
I would agree with the professor and just add that there should be some accountability for the staffers and the officers of the United States who acted to conceal and to cover up the president's incapacity from the American people. One other issue that's tied up in sort of this bundle of incapacity, impeachment is also succession, and that's something so many have written about extensively over the years. We are very blessed that we have never had a double vacancy.
History. Let's go back on what happened this week with, not this week, 12 days ago, I think it is now, Charlie Kirk, right? And you know what clips are going viral with you. A month ago, your intelligence.
Recording me, setting me up. The point is, they made a decision, this guy's got to go, and they said, we're going to use in a careless remark to take the guy out. So, you know, people see, here's a guy that said a bad thing.
I don't support that.
And and I'm not saying you do. I'm just explaining that's the side that a lot of people don't see. They see the bad remark. They don't see the calculation.
And that's why I'm having these questions with you. And by the way, I wish this podcast existed, because I don't know if there's one where someone's asking you for people to know, how did you become the way you became?
Exactly.
That's why I wanted to take this approach with you. But let me go here and hold you accountable a little bit. And again, feel free to push back. I'm comfortable with it. You're 27. You're no longer 18.
True.
So when you go a week ago and you're like, you don't need to do it. Here's why you don't need to do it. Dropping the N-word. Some of the words that you drop. I don't mind the F word, you know, shit and all this stuff. I drop it all the time. I try not to drop it on camera, but I'm also not sitting here telling you I walk on water. And I say all the words, and I listen to hardcore hip hop. I listened to a lot of hardcore hip hop growing up. That was my taste of music. I don't know if it was yours. It was for me. For a person who knows how to communicate as well as you do, when you use those words, you get an average person to question your intelligence. And you don't need to do that. You're above that. You're so talented. Why go there? Now, if you tell me, Pat, I'm just doing it because I don't want anybody like you to tell me that I can shut up because I've gone through them.
I want to hear what Nick has to say about this. This is good because he brings up a point that a lot of people, it's how a lot of people feel about Nick Fuentes. So let's see what Nick has to say. By the way, this is 2 days ago, this discussion.
Fair, fine. You want to do that. I would just say, I want to show you something. Rob, can you pull up you ever read the book Power versus Force?
No.
Okay. So this book, Power versus Force, I read it like 23 years ago. I was 23 years old when I read it. Yeah, it had a very, very big impact on my life. The guy breaks it down on what types of leaders eventually get to a certain level of consciousness that they gain power naturally and they truly become a positive force to the world. Like, I believe Charlie's a positive force to the world. To me, I had, believe it or not, Charlie at #1 spot. He's my #1 draft pick. If I'm building a super team, he's my #1 guy. No one was above Charlie. And there's a lot of guys, okay? No one. I respect all of them. I think they're very capable. But I thought Charlie was unique because of one specific reason. In this thing, he explains where if you look at all the way to, you see the third row where it says level.
Mm-hmm.
So go all the way down to the level. You see where it says shame.
Mm-hmm.
So shame. Like, I have relatives who are driven by shame. They're so tough to be around. They're living a tough life. That's not you. Guilt. I can't believe what I did 10 years ago. And they keep reliving this guilt. It's not you. Apathy. It's not you. Grief. That's not you. Fear. I don't think that's you. Desire. I don't know if that's you. Anger, pride, maybe. I was probably a fear, desire, women, and I was the one that wasn't as disciplined as you. I was very undisciplined when it came down to women. I just couldn't stop it. That was my vice that it wasn't video games, it wasn't porn, it wasn't gambling, it was women. So then you go to anger, pride, right? Pride. Screw you, you know.
This is interesting. I got to pull this thing up, this thing called Map of Consciousness, and go through this. This is pretty interesting to me. This is cool. Let's keep going.
Okay, no problem. Then comes courage. That's the first level of consciousness where you're entering. I think you have it. You have the courage to share there's a lot of risk in sharing your opinion. But then you go to neutrality, and then you have, which is, let me hear both sides out, and let me see what's going on. Then you're willing to speak to everybody. I actually think you're willing to speak to anybody. I wouldn't say you're not willing to speak to anybody. And then you got acceptance, that were different, and then he got reason, and then he got love. I actually believe Charlie was at reason and love. And I don't think anybody else in the movement is at reason and love. I don't think anybody else. This is my opinion, how I process this. When I watch you and I see what direction you're going and what your upside is, my only feedback on this topic that we're having, consider this feedback from a person who's never spoken. You and I, just so audience knows, how many times have you and I spoken?
0.
Have we ever DM'd each other?
Never, no.
Have we had a phone call with each other?
Never.
By the way, I think this is very important for the audience to know this. The guy paid for his own flight. We pay for your flight to come down here. We pay for your driver. We pay for your hotel. Didn't let do that. I actually respect that. That was your way of saying, hey, I don't want anybody to say this. I just came here. Whether it's because of safety reason, whatever, I respect all of it. The fact that he did that. And I think the audience needs to do that. Know that because they need to know where your character lies. All I'm saying is, pump the brakes a little bit. And here's why. I wouldn't mind coming back to the story, but we can transition back to this because I still want to know the history. Let's go back on what happened this week with, not this week, 12 days ago, I think it is now, Charlie Kirk, right? And you know what clips are going viral with you. A month ago, you're calling out, what do you call it? Turning Point USA. And I don't know what you said, but you said it. You know what it is. You can fill in the context on what you said, right? I'm not going to play the clip. But you were saying something. It's the clip where you're at the top and the other one's at the bottom, right? What you said before, and now it's like, hey, listen, Charlie was a Christian. He was trying to do this. You were very complimentary about Charlie. Okay. And Charlie Kirk got assassinated. And you've had death threats of people coming to your door, right? And things happening. How much has the last 12 days, because, at first they're like, well, it's Israel. You're like, no, it's not Israel. You're actually a person that I would have thought would have been the first to go there.
Guys, this is a podcast interview with Nick Fuentes and PBD 2 days ago.
You actually said, no, I'm not going there. Charlie, Nick is a Fed. All right. This person's CIA. All right. That kind of went away. Didn't have a long lifespan. It's gone. Hey, it's the Groypers that did it. It's your creek. It was out of the 13 questions, 11 were Groypers, whatever the number was. I may be wrong. I don't want to, go fact check me on what the number is, but I read somewhere that a number of the people that asked the question were Groypers. Groypers asked me a question when I was at Amphis, when the guy got up and said, how come you've never had Nicholas J. Fuentes on? And I said, he's got to stop saying the N-word. And this is when you kind of came back and reacted to the video. How are you processing this with Charlie Kirk? I've seen the tweets, I've seen the videos, but how are you processing this?
Well, on a personal level, it's terrifying, because he was out there and he got blown away doing what we all do, which is a public event or something like that. And of course, the same thing happened to me last year. Somebody came to my door with a gun while I was doing my show and tried to kill me. And so you realize we do really have a problem in the country with this kind of violence. That was kind of the first level. My first reaction is I didn't know if this was some lone nut job. Is there some kind of coordinated attack? If there would be copycats or something. But then on a deeper level.
Guys, look at this. This is the guy that showed up to Nick Fuentes' front door. When I tell you Nick Fuentes, so again, guys, I'm just learning about this guy. But when I tell you that Nick Fuentes is one of the most banned guys, most hated guys, most canceled guys, most blacklisted guys, and obviously most hated. Look at this guy. This guy brought a it's a semi-automatic crossbow in his left hand, and you can see what's in his right hand. And he's at Nick Fuentes' house, his front door.
And people are calling me a hypocrite because I had complimentary things to say about Charlie, even though he was my adversary in politics. But I don't see it as a contradiction. I disagreed with him. I still disagree with the things he said. And my views on him from a professional point of view hasn't changed. What I have processed is the reaction to the killing from all of his fans and from people. You see that millions of people were touched by his activism. And I looked at his activism in a very one-dimensional way, which is that he's pro-Trump, he's pro-Republican, he's pushing the talking points. We would call it Talking Points USA. That was kind of the joke.
TPUSA Talking Points.
Right, Talking Points. His job is to go out there and sell, the party. But seeing the outpouring of support, I mean, I saw a lot of young people that were emotional. young men, young women going to the vigils and actually distraught. And I think they were distraught, one, because it was so evil what was done to him. To see that kind of violence was really upsetting. But also I think people were touched because Charlie Kirk, it does put things in perspective when a person dies. I don't believe he was a bad man. I disagreed with him. I didn't like his politics. But what I have come to respect about him is that he was a very hard worker. He was kind. You noticed that when he talked to people he didn't like or disagreed with. He was open to other people. He changed his mind, even when he dealt with me. And he was never particularly nice to me, let's just say. But he was to a lot of people. And maybe more than anything, the thing that touched people the most was his testimony of his faith, that he believed in God. And, you know, I didn't like what he advocated for politics, but what he advocated for Christianity. That's the part that people are going to remember him for. That's the part that people, when they think Charlie Kirk, they don't think of the Republican debate bro. They think about a guy that was preaching marriage, values, you know, decent Christian values, Christ himself and his sacrifice on the cross. He was Protestant, I'm Catholic. And when they held the memorial yesterday, I'm going to tell you the truth, I thought there were things about the memorial that were distasteful. But one thing that was exceptional about it is the way that the name of Christ was proclaimed to everybody. And I think that, you know, when you see someone die like that, the reason it's jarring for people is because we realize that we're all going to die suddenly, unexpectedly. You know, and like him, he's 31 years old. Nobody expects that a 31-year-old with that kind of money and influence is going to die all of a sudden. He had plans. You know, he was going to get on his private jet and fly to do another event some other time. You know, nobody expects that you're going to die, someone like that at that age. And when you see someone like that cut down so viciously, you realize how life is so fragile and it's so temporary and it's so short. Any day we could all die. And what that then naturally makes us think about is, well, what does it all really mean then? If you could get stopped in your tracks at any time like that, what actually really matters in life? And what mattered about Charlie, when you see in the end, is it's not actually the times when he was maybe taking the piss and saying, what is a woman? It's the times when he was sincerely professing his faith, talking about moral virtues and the moral virtues that he lived in his deeds. And so to me, I guess it was a change in perspective, kind of realizing everybody asks the same question, how will I be remembered? You know, when we get unexpectedly killed or when we die or when bad things happen. And it's a challenge to kind of live every day thinking, could today be the day, you know, and what did I do on my final day? How did I act? Did I tell the truth?
Mr. Nobody, he always has a smile on his face. That's how Nick Fuentes talks. Everything he talks about is just his way of communicating. He just does it with this smile on his face. I think he's just learned how to do that.
Truth. Was I courageous? Was I kind? You know, not just to my friends and my family, but also to my enemies. So I think it brought people to the center a little bit, centered in a spiritual sense.
Did you at all watch it yesterday where you had moments of sitting there saying, this was a good guy, man. Shit, you know, I wish I would have changed the approach with our relationship. Did you at all have that moment?
I don't know that I would have changed my approach because politics is vicious, you know, and that's just the game. He was vicious to us. We were vicious to him. But I do think that I harshly judged him. I think when anybody dies, you feel that way. And I think especially since he died, you look at him and you realize this guy was not actually the worst guy in the world. You know, he was kind of my nemesis in a way. And maybe I was his on the right wing. But I realized that we had so much more in common than we disagreed with, actually.
So do you think when you hear the statement...
That's a really good point, and I'm going to talk to State Line about this because State Line, you were saying that we talk politics is too prevalent in our lives, and sorry, I got a seed stuck in my throat. I think that sorry guys. I think that the more we talk about politics, I think now that Charlie Kirk is no longer with us, and the way that went down is going to make politics in our lives even more than it was before. And we can all agree that politics was starting to become a bigger part of our lives. And in the last 5 to 10 years, like it really grew within our lives. And now with Charlie Kirk and what happened there, I think politics is going to be an even bigger part of our lives. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. And I don't think there's any type of like a civil war or anything like that that people talk about. The contrary, I think that the more we talk about things, the more we get to the bottom of things, and the more we realize we're actually more alike than we are different. And I think it's going to be a better understanding of each other, and a better, like kind of like a coming together on many different ideas and fronts. So, like I said before, anybody that I got into physical fights with or verbal arguments with fiercely, those are typically the people that I became good friends with, or I got to know well and became part of my life. So yeah. State Line says, I agree. I'm more concerned regarding the intent behind it, especially viewing the political theater rather than doing right by us. I think at first sparks are going to fly after the death of Charlie Kirk. I think sparks are going to fly, and politics are going to be even more in our lives, and it will feel like we're going into some weird place, and it's going to be nuts, but it will, once the dust settles, I think it's going to get us to a better place overall. It's just like anything that you talk about a lot, you figure it out, and you're like, okay, I get it now. I think that's going to happen with politics. Let's keep going. I like what he said here. That was really good. I almost want to rewind it just a tad just to get back to
Let's
this.
find a way to lower the temperatures. Do you in your mind say, shut up with this lowering the temperature bullshit. Stop it. Lower the temperature. Do you know what's going to... Do you hear that message now and say, maybe we got to lower the temperature? Hey, maybe if I got all these young guys that are following me, how Christ-like am I being? What am I... This whole WWJD, I had a call with somebody 2 days ago. I won't mention the name, but also very talented and capable. Very. Person I believe in tremendously as well. And we also, have had a challenge. But I said, listen, every time as I'm going through this, and I'm out there, I took my kids. Everyone's like, don't take your kids to, what do you call it? The Charlie's and I said, no, I'm taking my kids. I believe in God. I have faith. And if I move forward with fear, what a coward. I'm a leader. I'm a leader amongst leaders. We're going to go there. They sit there proud. We're good. Of course, we make the investment for security and all that stuff, but we got to go. We can't change our life dramatically where we're seen as being cowards, right? We're never going to do that. This is America. It's the greatest country in the world. I'm going to do my part. My life has changed because of God, Jesus, America. I am the luckiest human being alive. That is my feeling, the vibe that I have, right? But when you hear the words, we got to lower the temperature, what's the first thing you think about?
I think it's kind of just a wrong perspective on it because, I'm an intense person, and I think that this is a decisive moment for America. And, what really made me beside myself is not necessarily that someone killed Kirk, because there's a lot of crazy people out here that unfortunately do carry out acts of violence. It was that there were like 100,000 liberals who are in their right mind that were celebrating, that were glib about it, that crashed vigils, that danced, that laughed, that mocked it, that said it was a good thing, he deserved it. And you realize that it is a battle between good and evil. And I don't believe that when you're fighting evil, you lower the intensity. I think that we must very intensely fight evil because we have to win. If we lose, and by we, I mean decent people, they're going to hurt us and they're going to destroy the things that we care about. So for me, it's not necessarily about intensity. Temperature, I would say intensity. I think we should all fight for what we believe in intensely every day. I would change it and say it's really a question of love and hate. It was a hateful action to kill Charlie Kirk. It's a hateful action to celebrate. I think that we should be intense, but we should also move in love. And what that means is, I said this on my show, people kill each other with bullets and literally murder each other and take their lives. We also kill each other by destroying each other's reputations. When we lie about somebody, when we gossip about somebody, when you go and actually do the examen of conscience at confession at a Catholic church, and you go through all the different sins and you say, because you have to contemplate, you have to confess everything, every mortal sin, you have to confess all of it. So first you examine it systematically. Have I done this? Have I done that? And one of the violations of the commandment, thou shalt not kill, is gossip, detraction. It's attacking somebody with a lie.
because that's a form of killing somebody in a certain sense. It's a form of damning somebody. And so I wouldn't say we need to lower the intensity, but we should always move in love. And by that, I don't mean some kind of like new age and move in love, very vague and non-specific.
Totally, yeah.
But I mean, we should want what's good for everybody. We should will the good for us and also even for our enemies too, and for the whole country. And so that's why I said my first reaction when I did my show, a lot of people said, well, we now got to go and kill 2 of theirs. They killed one of ours. Now we need to get violent. You know, now we got to go and pick up arms. How many's too many? I think there were, I mean, not anybody notable, but I think there were a lot of people that were thinking that.
On the conservative side?
I think so.
You think so?
I do.
Are you saying groypers, or you're saying like, what part of that? Because, are you saying groypers?
No, no, absolutely not.
You're saying just conservatives, period.
I'm saying, yeah, I think that, I mean, do you think that after people saw Charlie Kirk get murdered, there weren't at least some people that said, we have to match the left?
Perfect. I'm glad you brought that up. So my initial reaction, I'm a very bad person. Very. Initial reaction is vengeance, right? That's normal. Initial. But, you know, that's the part where, you know, there's certain people that will come say stuff about me. They say it all the time. You've got money from Assad. We don't do sponsorship money here. We haven't taken sponsorship money for 2 years. The only thing we take is AdSense, and that's what YouTube does. We don't pick and choose what it is, right? But they'll say stuff like that. Doesn't bother me, because it's like, you know, if you fight it, they're going to do more of it. So what are you going to do? That's what bothers them. Let me keep going. Nah, I'm good. I'm going to do your part. You know, maybe if I was in my 20s, I would constantly fight that over and over and over again. I'm not. To me, I also think there's a moment here, where we have a moment. I feel like within the Conservative Party, there's a lot of different gangs, okay? In a mob, if you go study the history of the mob with Lucky Luciano, when they created the commission, all these different families came together, right? It doesn't mean we're buddy. Hey, how you doing? You know, everything's good. That's not what that means. It just means, listen, at the end of the day, maybe the enemy isn't who we think the enemy is, okay? Maybe you and Charlie, 90%, I don't know, 80, 90%, you were on the same page. Is it worth us getting this nasty over the 10%? I don't know. I don't know. I feel we're at an era right now that I think all the voices matter. And I think, like, I don't know what your aspirations are long term. Do you have any aspirations to run for office one day?
Potentially.
Okay, potentially. Do you think Charlie was going to one day run for office?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I said that all the time. I think you probably have some plans of one day running. They showed me a clip when he said, I want 100,000 people that are making money, low-key, underground, nobody knows, where you're kind of breaking that up. Okay, great. So you want to run for office one day. Great. You have your own certain ideas, philosophies that you want to go. But I think that this next part, as we go through it, this is an MLK moment. This was the MLK of Republicans and conservatives. Even though Martin Luther King was a Republican and his wife called Nixon to get some help, they didn't call back, and then he called John F. Kennedy. She called, and then that's when they flipped. I'm going to be a Democrat, and then next year, and then you got Barry Goldwater, and the whole thing is a mess. African Americans were conservatives for many, many years, statistically. My question for you is, how is your approach going to change moving forward? Are you still planning on going all out, aggressive, because you said love and hate, right? Are you still trying to go with that part? Like yesterday, Trump said something, I don't know if you caught it, you probably caught it, when he said, I hate my enemies. I hate my enemies. I don't know, Erica's probably going to come talk to me afterwards, change my mind. You got to love the guy that he talks like that, right? You guys got a little bit of that similar style of things that you guys do. But I do think deep down inside he's loved today. I do think he's loved today. What's going to change about your approach? Anything, or are you planning on being the same?
To be honest with you, I don't think there's much that needs to change. I mean, we all have a battle that we fight every day, I mean, like you said, your first reaction when you saw him go down was vengeance. And,
no question.
And especially when you do a live show, so many of the things I've said that I regret or are unfortunate things, it's things that you get whipped up talking about something you're passionate about, and out of anger, something like that, you take it too far, you say something careless. And so, to the extent that it's a reminder of our mortality. I always try every day to keep it truthful, and to make sure that it's coming from the right place. I don't think we should be emotional. I don't think anger, and I agree with you, the chart that you showed, we shouldn't want to be angry. We should want to be prudent. We should want to be thoughtful, and we should want to act out of rationality as opposed to emotion. And so to the extent that Charlie Kirk died, how it affected me, I'm going to try harder to move in that way. But I think I've been tending in that direction for a long time.
Did he inspire you? Was there anything about him that inspired you?
Yes. The one thing that he inspired me about, because I did not like him when he was alive, I'll be honest with you. The one thing that inspired me is this guy was a workhorse, and I respect that because I have a hard time with discipline. I'm not the most disciplined person when it comes to hard work. And this guy was a beast. I mean, the stuff that he did, working morning to night, you got to think he did a 3-hour show every day, wrote books. Then he went home and managed Turning Point. Then he went and flew out and did 100 campus events. That's just like him and Trump. They have that Protestant work ethic. And I know you're a capitalist, you're a businessman. There's nothing I respect more than people that build, people that work hard. That's noble. That's good. That's a virtue. So that was very inspirational to me.
I want 3 more hours with you because I got so many questions. I'm getting so. What do you think about Thomas Rousseau? Is there any thoughts you have, Thomas?
That was a really good point about Charlie Kirk, his work ethic, and about Trump. He tied it to being Protestant a little bit, and I'm curious what that means because I didn't know being Protestant or hard work being tied to I don't get that connection. But curious if you guys know.
Thomas Rousseau?
Yeah, I actually watched your show.
What'd you think about him?
You know, I think he's very disciplined also, very composed, very disciplined. But I just don't like that type of activism. I don't know how productive that is.
What did you disagree with him on?
You know, he is a ideological racialist, and I believe that goes too far. I'm a Catholic. I don't know what his religious views are. I think there's a tendency from some white nationalists to idolize race. They believe that race is the highest virtue. As a Catholic, I do believe there's a universal community of human beings, that we are all human in a fundamental way. And although I do believe that race is real, I also think we're all humans also. So I would say he's more racialist than me. And I also think that...
Guys, who's Thomas Rousseau? Do you guys know? Should I look him up? Is it bad that I don't know who Thomas Rousseau is? I know Eris Rousseau. Thomas Rousseau. There's Thomas Rousseau. Has to do more.
It's a different America than today. So black members cannot be a part of.
This is Thomas Rousseau. We're going to go back to Nick Fuentes, but I just want to see who is Thomas Rousseau.
Patriot Front. Can a Middle Eastern?
No.
Can I apply and be a part of it?
There are many organizations in this country that are by and for people of African descent or people of Middle Eastern descent.
Sure. I'm just qualifying that so we know. It's not a big deal. It's
Absolutely.
just
Again, guys, this is Thomas Rousseau. They just mentioned him here with Nick Fuentes, and so I'm just trying to figure out who this is.
You're saying what the position is. Okay.
Yes.
Trump. How do you feel about Trump?
I have a balanced opinion on Trump. I do not personally, overtly, or actively support him. I think the patriotic constituents in America, people who think like I do, are too easily brought in behind politicians who may overpromise and underdeliver. I think Trump is very unique in the political space. I think he has done a lot for the conservative movement. You see things being the norm in conservative politics that under Mitt Romney and Newt Gingrich would have been unthinkable. So I think there is a value to that. I think the landscape has opened up. But I don't personally support Trump. I think Trump has to do more.
Such as what? Like, what does he need to do?
I think his support for Israel is one thing in particular, and perhaps his favor of those Zionist politics is one of the biggest things that are perhaps holding Trump back from a true America First policy.
So you're not for him supporting the Zionists and Israel. You don't like that.
I am not in favor of it.
Why are you uncomfortable with that?
I believe not only is the wars in the Middle East, often involving Israel, either directly or indirectly, are a huge drain of resources, of diplomatic credibility. I mean, how many countries in the world hate the United States because we have chosen Israel as an ally over however many dozens of countries despise us for our role in that. But it is a drain of blood. It's a drain of resources. It's a drain of money. It's a drain of diplomatic credibility. And culturally, Americans have very little in common with, I think, a lot of the people that live in Israel. Perhaps not much more than we would have in common with the people who live in other countries.
Unpack that. What do you mean by that? The word we disagree with a lot of people in Israel.
Americans are not culturally similar to Israelis any more than we would be culturally similar to Iranians, especially, you know, in the country where you grew up. I know Iran has changed very drastically, but I don't think we have a whole lot. There's no reason that Israel needs to be this ally, which we are willing to sacrifice our place on the global stage for, which we're willing to wage trillion-dollar wars to destabilize their neighbors. There's no reason except for the fact that there's so many Zionists in the American government, in lobbying groups like AIPAC, and they brag about their influence. They brag about being able to buy politicians. And you look up politicians that say pro-Israel things, that they defend Israel invading these cities in Gaza, and you look at how much money they've received from AIPAC and groups like that, and it's a lot. But I don't think we should support these other groups in the Middle East. I think the United States should be hands off the Middle East, because I think a lot of these countries, a lot of these groups were having conflicts and border conflicts and ethnic conflicts and religious conflicts long before the United States ever showed up, and they'll be having them after we leave.
Do you think the world's a better place without Israel existing?
I don't know. I think the existence of Israel is something that needs to be decided by the Middle East and not the United States.
So, okay, are you a Christian?
I am not personally religious, although I do deeply respect and appreciate the role that Christianity has played in shaping the culture of America.
What do you believe in?
I believe there's something. I believe there is greater power. There is something in nature or something in the creation of the world and the universe.
Who do you think Jesus was?
I think Jesus was an immensely important historical figure. I believe he was real. I believe he was present, and I believe he defined, you know, millennia that have followed with his words and with his actions and with the.
Like, do you see him as the greatest carpenter of all time? Is that kind of how you view him? Or
I think Christ exemplified a lot of the moral teachings that I believe have greatly influenced. I mean, he was, you know, he's called the Son of God, and billions of people believe that. So,
yeah. So would you say you're an atheist, agnostic, more agnostic?
I've never delved really into picking or choosing a label, but I deeply respect the role that Christianity has played.
So let's just say I'm Assyrian. Okay.
Very good.
And as most of the Assyrian land was today's Iraq.
Okay.
Okay. And a lot of the places, historical places of Assyrians, you know, Alamas and some of these places that we had, they've been destroyed by people in Iraq, absolutely destroying well-known churches, well-known buildings to get rid of the history.
I'm against historical erasure.
Okay. But also, if you say you're against it, but what does that really mean? Because, you know, some people may say, well, the reason why Israel is necessary, because that's Jerusalem. So what if we let it loose and you let the Middle East handle it and they go in and they destroy the city? How do you prevent that from happening?
I wouldn't be in favor of cities being destroyed generally.
Well, you won't be able to control that because that's happened.
Does the United States need to guarantee every city in the world?
Jerusalem is a different city, though. There's a you know, couple billion people worldwide that believe in this guy named Jesus, and they don't think he was just a carpenter. They think he was a.
I understand.
Right. So to them, they would like to keep that place.
When you spoke with Vivek Ramaswamy, he was talking about how I don't believe he thinks that the Israel should be in its place of preeminence that it is right now. But he was talking about how Israel had all the money and all the guns that, frankly, they needed to defend their own borders. But what they lacked most was diplomatic credibility. And that was not being used by them, because I think there's a lot of people in Israel who are placing the conflict and their war goals over their diplomatic credibility on the world stage. And without the United States propping them up diplomatically, perhaps a lot of those politicians in Israel would have to make a lot of very difficult decisions, which would ultimately bring them back into a semblance, we can hope, of harmony. But that's a decision that has to be made by them.
But that's a different conversation, though.
Sure.
Those are two separate things we're talking about. I think...
I don't think that America exists to assure these places.
you don't think America exists to ensure these places. So,
Yes.
got it. So for you, whether they destroy Jerusalem or not, that's not in your top 100 list that matter to you.
I would say that I would think it would be a very bad thing. However,
you wouldn't lose sleep over it, though.
The United States, if we're talking about what we would do, I'm not in any position to write policy or dictate foreign policy, right? But the United States could act not as a arms dealer, but it could act in a more assertive tone as a peace broker. And I think that could avoid the type of cataclysmic scenario you're talking about.
What prompted you to be so uncomfortable or maybe against Israel's existence, or, you know, the fact that's like, I think Trump being too supportive of that, I'm not with that. What prompted you at this age, 25 years old, to be so against that?
It's not so much Israel in the Middle East as much as it is Israel in the United States. I think the amount of people of Jewish faith and ancestry, and specifically of Zionist political leanings, is they're overrepresented in positions of power in the United States today. And is that me saying that every single one of them is morally bad and guilty of some particular wrongdoing? No, absolutely not. But I think it is not wrong to say that these people, you know, especially Zionists, people with these lobbying groups, are so vastly overrepresented in comparison to the amount of Jews in the Middle East or in the United States or anywhere, that we need to ask some serious questions as a country as to whether or not the influence of these, you know, political careerists is in the best or the negative interests of the United States. And if you ask me, I would say no.
I think that's a very valid. No, I don't think people would dispute that. I don't think that's the concern. There's a lot of people that are probably going to be on the same page with you there on whether America's first or not. It's not about I hope so. I think that's what the case is.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right.
Okay, guys, we just watched Thomas Rousseau because they mentioned that here on the podcast with Nick Fuentes. This podcast right here with Nick Fuentes happened 2 days ago, and we learned a lot about who Nick Fuentes is, and it took me down a rabbit hole, and so I'm learning with you guys.
From an ideological point of view. From a professional point of view, I just do not support that type of activism, these provocative marches where they're not getting human beings, that we are all human in a fundamental. I'm a Catholic. I don't know what his religious views are. I think there's a tendency from some white nationalists to idolize race. They believe that race is the highest virtue. As a Catholic, I do believe there's a universal community of human beings, that we are all human in a fundamental way. And although I do believe that race is real, I also think we're all humans also. So I would say he's more racialist than me. And I also think that from an ideological point of view, from a professional point of view, I just do not support that type of activism, these provocative marches where they're not getting in people's faces, but it is intended to provoke. It is intended to be transgressive. And I don't know how much I like that.
He was also interesting to get to know, and he was very good in the way he communicated. His style is very different than yours. He's very, you know, the way he speaks is more here. You're more animated. You have a very smooth style of delivering your message, but I actually wanted to know this guy to see what drove him. Your opinion of me. I'm Middle Eastern, married to a white girl, okay? I'm from Iran. Christian guy, mom's a Christian, dad's a Christian, mom was a communist, dad was an imperialist, went to Germany, refugee camp, came to the States. Do you think there should be more opportunities of guys like me to end up here, or do you think it's better off for America, purely based on odds, to minimize more of me coming to America?
Well, I think that the most important thing to consider about immigration is it's just the volume, it's the numbers. I don't have a problem in principle with immigration at all. If we brought in 1 million, or maybe not 1 million, but if we brought in, let's say, 300,000 people every year that are like you, that are intelligent, that are productive, that are going to be generative, I don't necessarily have a problem with that in and of itself. The problem is that for 30 years, we bring in 2 or 3 million people per year. You know, the foreign-born population has doubled. We brought in 50 to 60 million people since 1990. That's just too many people. And how I would distinguish it is that we're bringing in so many people that it's fundamentally altering what America is. You go to like Miami. Miami's like a Caribbean country. Like it doesn't even feel like America. It feels more like Costa Rica or something. You go to New York, LA. It doesn't feel like what America used to be, what America is distinctly. And that's what I have a problem with, that pretty soon everywhere it's going to be so diverse linguistically, ethnically, religiously, that you can't even say America is anything. You know, like the mayor of Minneapolis, he's doing advertisements in Somalian. What is that?
Yeah, they had a cop. The cop badge is now in Arabic. I don't know if you saw that or
Yes.
not. Yeah. How do you feel about that?
I think that's horrible.
What do you think about between the two communities, Muslim and Jews? Which one concerns you more?
Jews, for sure.
Tell me why.
More powerful. They're more powerful.
So more powerful in a way. You're talking the fact that they have money, finance, Hollywood. Is that what you're?
Yeah, they have more position in American society.
And how do you think they got that?
I think they got it because they are extremely connected. They're a transnational entity. You know, this is how the Rothschilds got started. Their superpower is that they live everywhere, and they have their Jewish identity supersedes their local identity. So a Jewish person in America or in Germany or in France or in the UK, they can all talk to each other and work together.
Do you think that's a bad thing?
Not in and of itself. It is detrimental for America, though.
Is it detrimental, though? Because, you know, I'm a Syrian, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I wish Assyrians were more like this.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you why I relate to them. We don't have a country. Assyrians used to have a country. We used to be the first warriors. We were written about in the Bible. You read it all over the place. You know, the history we had, the things we invented. And then we became a little cocky. And God came in and was like, listen, man, relax, Assyrians. You ain't going to come and be the king of the jungle. It's me. And you hear the stories about that they built a tower to go all the way to the top because we are Assyrians and, you know, and then we failed. It's like, no, look at you now. No one knows who Assyrians are. You don't even have a country, right? We know the land in Iraq or wherever you are. You don't have it anymore. I think when a community becomes too cocky, the man upstairs is going to handle that himself, right? But in a sense, when you see they went from a small community to have this much influence, isn't that almost impossible for them to pull off? Like, isn't that? So it either produces one of two things. I'm not intimidated. I'm not a guy that is envious or jealous or, oh my God, that guy's richer than me. That guy's this guy's, I'm not. I want to see what they did and what worked for them. For example, to me, when I think about Jews, I think about Mormons, I think about Scientologists. I used to have an office where half the office was all Scientology, and I learned all these phrases, assist, or, you know, I went to their church and I saw Dianetics and L. Ron Hubbard and what he would say when you get a headache, you do this, and all these weird extras. I'm like, wow, interesting. How much money? We give $200,000 off. Why'd you give that? But let me tell you, those guys that were in, they had each other's back. It was a fraternity that you wish family members were like this, right? I think Scientologists have it maybe more than Jews. So I think Jews will bite each other a little bit, not as much. And then Mormons have each other's back. Of course, there's a fallout out as well where people come out and they'll talk about God makers or, you know, what Gordon B. Hinckley, and I've read all of that stuff from over the years. But what's wrong with them winning at the highest level?
Well, I agree with you that it is remarkable, and it is actually ominous how much they've achieved. Here's the problem, though. America's an open society. You know, the premise of this country is it's self-government, of, by, for the people. There's a egalitarian idea that we are all citizens, and our government is going to be comprised of the citizenry of America. That's deeply embedded in who we are and in our government and our whole system. And take me, for example. I'm Italian, Mexican, and Irish. The Italians were very much like this when they immigrated to America. You know, they had in Chicago what they called the outfit, which was the mafia, and they looked out for each other. And when my grandfather died on my mom's side, I believe my grandmother got a loan from the outfit. And they would come by every month or whatever, and they'd bring a fruit basket, and they'd look after her, and they provided financially.
Was it Spilatra's group? Do you know the history of it, or was it Tony Spilatra?
I don't know who it was specifically.
Okay, got it.
But so, you know, these are some of the stories I would hear growing up from my mom and my grandmother.
So think about, at that time, how many people were against Italians? At that time, how many people didn't like Italians in New York? Because, do you know Bank of America was first called Bank of Italy? Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
So can you pull up, Rob, was Bank of America first Bank of Italy? If I'm wrong, it is what it is. I think Bank of America was originally Bank of Italy, and everybody used to, yes, the Bank of America was originally founded in Bank of Italy in 1904 to an Italian American in San Francisco on the financial needs of Italian immigrants and other under.
Dude, did you guys know Bank of America was first Bank of Italy? I had no clue. Look at that. 1904.
Sort of people
by A.P. Giannini, an Italian American in San Francisco. Wow, I had no idea, guys.
Bank eventually merged with another institution to form Bank of America and changed its name to Bank of America, right? The tellers were Italians. You know, they would give small little loans, $10, $4, $5 to them. And some people were not supportive of that. They're like, what are Italian immigrants doing here? You guys are becoming too much power in New York. We're not happy about this. So there was some of that going on 100 years ago.
And that's what I'm saying is that did exist. And then what happened eventually is that Italians assimilated. Eventually, these groups, these ethnic advocacy groups were broken up, if you could call the outfit that, or the mob of New York, and then Italians assimilated. And when I grew up, I saw myself as American. I didn't see myself as Italian American. I just saw myself as American. And I think that, you know, when you see...
Yeah, I agree with... I kind of agree with him on this. I don't call myself or see myself as Persian American. I was born here in Southern California. And even though we celebrate everyone's differences and cultures and all that kind of stuff and I'm American. I'm not Persian. I'm American.
Jewish people working together. I don't think there's anything wrong with that inherently. And I agree with you. It's like a superpower. It's actually admirable in some ways. They look out for each other. But if society becomes, American society in particular, a place where every group is ganging up, well, we're the whites, we're the blacks, we're the Jews, then I think what America is starts to come apart, and it turns into kind of like a bit of a politicized race war. And I think that...
Wow, this is a good point, man. I didn't think of it like this. Huh.
You either have to have a society where everybody gets to play by those rules and everybody could be pro what they are, or everybody is assimilated and we're all Americans. And that's why I say it's detrimental, is that if Jewish people are Jewish first, not of, by, and for America, but of, by, and for the Jewish nation, this is problematic when they're in positions of power, because are they looking out for all of us, or are they looking out for themselves first? And when you look at the Israel policy, that's where people start to say, I think you're looking out for yourselves first. I think you're biased. And unfortunately, you're using the public purse and American soldiers to fight your own battles. And that's the problem. It's not, I don't have hatred for them. I don't have a problem with them in themselves or even what they do. It's just that with our system, that doesn't work.
You know what I would say to that as well?
Guys, I got to pause that for a second. That's interesting, man. I like that take on it. I don't know if you guys know Nick Fuentes. I'm just learning about him, and I just learned about him from this podcast right here that aired 2 days ago. I haven't watched the whole thing, and I'm watching it with you guys. And I had no idea. Tybalt King, I got to tell you, I'm Texan first, then American. A lot of us have that mentality. Yeah, I could see that. I don't consider myself Californian first, but I do consider myself American, 100%. I don't see myself as Persian American, or I'm Iranian, or I'm not even close. I'm born here. I'm raised here. I have love for country, and love for the people of this country, and love for the founders of this country, and I will back up all of my fellow Americans before I back up anybody else. Anyway, this is interesting. I never thought of it this way, and I like the way Nick Fuentes explained this.
You know, if they use the American soldiers in their advantage and all that other stuff. Okay. Who negotiated that deal? Some president negotiated that deal. Someone said yes to it, right? When they say, well, let me tell you, you know, that person is afraid to platform this guy because he's afraid his donors are going to go and do this. And it's Israel's fault. No, it's not. It's the guy who runs it's not Israel's fault. What are you talking about? You know, this guy sends me a message, AIPAC. I got a text, not a text, what do you call it in the X? A DM I get from AIPAC, okay? Hey, we'd like you to come to Israel. We'd like to invite you. I'm sure many people get that message, right? They send it. I said, I'm going to come. with my pastor. I don't want you to pay for it. I'm going to pay for it. I want to bring my crew because I want to go see Jerusalem. You're not going to see me putting the what do they call it? The
kippah.
I'm not going to put that on. But guess what? I respect the culture, and I want to go to Gaza, and I would ask for some idea of protection that if we can go to Gaza, show it to her. I want to see this stuff. I want to go with my pastor. First time around, I'm not going to take my kids. Maybe the second, third time, I'll take my kids. But to me, I don't put the onus on, like when a guy's like, that guy has slept with so many people, this, and the girl said yes. No, but you don't understand. He's a man whore. But the girl said yes. So is it Israel or is it the girl? Do you understand what point I'm trying to make here?
Absolutely.
So to me, it's kind of like, I mean, look, if you said Israel over Muslims, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which of the two do you think has been a bigger net positive to America?
Oh, well,
guys, I want to see what he says right here. But Margaret, let us know where you came from to come to America. Curious. And then Carlos and I think it was Tibble Kane said Texas. Why, Carlos? Why do you say Virginian before American? Just curious. No bad dogs. Just curious.
It has to be Israel. Absolutely.
Okay, so a part about that part.
But, well,
a part about you said Israel over Muslims, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which of the two do you think has been a bigger net positive to America?
Oh, well, it has to be Israel. Absolutely.
Okay, so a part about that part.
But, well, in terms of, I wouldn't say net positive. I would say in terms of raw, maybe like gross positive. Because they've had a lot of contributions culturally and even, in terms of art, literature, music, also scientifically. But it's difficult to say on that because I also think that there's quite a bit of a detriment. I think that the melting pot comes from the Jewish community.
What do you mean by that?
The idea of the melting pot, that comes from a Jewish playwright. Because Jewish people come to America, and like all immigrants, they say, well, we want America to be more welcoming. So they start to spin up these ideas that, well, America was never this country of white Christians. It's always been a melting pot for all immigrants. They want the country to be more open because that makes it more comfortable for them. It makes it more tolerant for them. But this has also made us more open and tolerant for Muslims, for example.
I got to hear this again.
We're bringing America to be more welcoming. So they start to spin up these ideas to be more Jewish playwright. Because Jewish people come to America, and like all immigrants, they say, well, we want America to be more welcoming. So they start to spin up these ideas that, well, America was never this country of white Christians. It's always been a melting pot for all immigrants. They want the country to be more open because that makes it more comfortable for them. It makes it more tolerant for them. But this has also made us more open and tolerant for Muslims, for example. We're bringing, who's been the biggest driver of like the Hart-Celler 65 Immigration Act? It was like the SPLC, which is run by Jewish lawyers. And so they're major drivers of mass migration. They're also major drivers of the pro-Israel politics, like the Iraq War. It was many Jewish journalists and pundits and advocates.
Sure.
So a point being is like when you calculate on net, and I agree with you, like I think there are a lot of people that are critical of Israel that are reluctant to acknowledge the good that Jews do. And I think that Jews they're brilliant. Many of them are brilliant.
So when I'm saying net positive, I'm talking jobs, economy. How often you hear about crime, what they do. Like if you have a choice between living in a city in Minnesota, Dearborn, and living in, I don't know what's the biggest city. What's the city that, Boca Raton, let's just say, right? If you have a choice between raising your family between Dearborn and Boca Raton, where do you choose?
Boca Raton,
okay,
of course,
so the point is like they go to a place. And by the way, to me, if that was Muslims, guess what? I would say Muslims. But statistically, wherever they live, it's safer, things are nicer, things get better.
I agree.
And that is one part to measure where they're at. Now, do I see them overly aggressive? Do I see them the type that are going to use politicians and buy them like Marjorie Taylor Greene and other people are saying? 100%. Do I see them, they're going to be there in everyone's DM and email saying, hey, we'd love to support you. We'd love to bring you to Israel and, doing all that stuff? It's obvious. I'm seeing it myself, okay? Do I look at that and shame them and say, oh, you shame on? I look at that and say, no, I wish Armenians would do that. I've never gotten an invitation from Prime Minister of Armenia. He should probably send me an invite to go there, right? It's not a bad idea to come and
That's a good point.
show the country. I'm Armenian. I'm a Syrian. Syrians don't have a country. It's probably a good idea. You don't see that. You wish others would do that. So for me, as much as when I go into that, by the way, I'll give you one other side that, Israel's going to be like, yeah. This other side to me is I actually do believe they leverage Mossad to get intel. I actually do believe they use blackmail. I actually do believe they do that. So, there's nothing going on with Epstein. No. Michael Wolff did a podcast with him 2 months ago. And when he was at Epstein's house, the 100 hours of recording that he has with him, I said, how many times was Ehud Barak there? Am I saying his name correctly? Or Barak?
Ehud Barak.
Ehud Barak. He said he was there many times. He saw Bill Gates there many times. Why would the former prime minister visit the guy 30-something times? Just because the conversations are great? That's a little bit suspect, right? So to me, I'll go there, but I'll go the other end. So what I'm trying to do, like if you're wondering what my role is here, okay? My role is I want to continue talking to you. I want us to do many of these together as we go through whatever journey we go through next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And I'd like you to be around 60 years from now to see whatever you want to do. And let's see what your ideas are going to land and what they're going to go through. I'm sure as we all age, some of them get better, some of them get sharper. Maybe this used to be a number 1 to us at 26. Maybe it's going to be number 6 when we're 46. Maybe this used to be number 11 when we're 26. Now it's number 2 when we're 52. Who knows? Life changes. You evolve, right? You're just watching Trump in the last 10 years change. He's not the same. Just the way he does his speaking. I was watching him speak yesterday, and the way he's doing press conference. A very different guy on where he's at. And it's not like he's tired and he's not working. You said him and Charlie Kirk, the Protestant, workers thing that they have. It's not that. I just see his going through it himself. I would like people on both sides to not be like, oh my God, he just had Nick Fuentes on. That's it. No, you don't control me. I want to talk to you. Oh my God, he brought Cuomo and he did this. Dude, Cuomo, we orchestrated a conversation with him and Dave Smith. It was great. And we had Chris Cuomo and Candace speak. It was great. They gave their arguments. And Chris said some things about, people don't need IDs to vote. I don't agree with that. But guess what? At least we had the conversation, right? I'll sit with Wiener. I'll sit with you. I'll sit with, let me tell you, I got a lot of death threats after having BB on. And I had 3 outcomes with BB, right? To me, it was very simple what I wanted to get. I wish I had 2 hours with the guy, but it was a short time. But I guess maybe the final thing that I want to get before we wrap up is, do you mind in a 3 to a 5 minute part, finish up that part on when we were going through with you and Cassie and Media Matters and Leadership Institute and Reagan Battalion and the video that we were talking about. Do you mind going past that a little bit?
Yeah.
And maybe let's finish that story and then we'll wrap up the podcast.
Sure. So, then I went to Charlottesville. And just for context, I wasn't at the Tiki Torch event. I got there actually the next day. And by the time I got to the actual thing, they had already shut it down. So I got blamed for being there, even though technically I wasn't even really there. But so I went there. Because of that, I got fired from RSBN. They let me go after that. That's when I started doing my show independently. And, kind of the rest was history. But I started doing it independently. And I guess the next big saga was my interaction with Charlie Kirk, which is where my followers were going to his events. This was in autumn 2019. And they were asking him, why are you Israel first? And why do you support mass legal migration? And why are you so tolerant towards some of the LGBT stuff? He was very pro-gay at that time and other things. And that was really where I put myself on the map which was with the Groyper War, where we were kind of challenging and pushing back on him. And ever since then, I guess I've been the kind of underground counterweight to these more establishment GOP people. And it's sort of interesting over the years how this has evolved, my relationship with Trump, with Charlie Kirk. These are kind of the standard bearers of conservatism in this day and age. And I guess I'm just the story of the congenital, the archetypal young white male of the Trump era. The young white male, extremely online, very political, disaffected, disillusioned, that has just kind of been following all these things to their reasonable conclusion. And it's interesting how that's changed over 10 years. I mean, it's been such a long time I've done it, but But yeah, that was sort of kind of the next part in that saga. But as you know, it's a very long story. So
yes, it is. And I see a bunch of stuff going on with you guys. You know, all the names, everybody going back. I've watched the clips. We react to some of them here on the podcast. If you see us when we react to it, then you're always making noise. So you're we have to react to. So your sense of humor is, let me tell you, you have that sense of humor and the wit. It's a secret weapon, because you can have all the brains you want. You can be a very good communicator, but if you don't have that funny sense of humor side, that is a secret weapon that can't be taught. You can go take all the Udemy classes.
I agree.
You can go to Harvard, Yale. You can go to, whatever courses you want to go take. You can study everything about the Constitution. Know every word better than anybody. The Federalist Paper, you can recite it. The Bible, all of it. You don't have a sense of humor? And you're sarcastic. You're a troll. You got all of that. So it's great for camera.
Yes.
But Nick, I really appreciate you coming out. I got respect for you that you paid for it yourself. Allow me to pay for you next time if you come out. You don't have to worry about the driving. Let us at least take care of your flight. But I look forward to many more conversations that we have together. This was actually, when people say, what do you think is going to happen? I think we're going to have a great conversation. It was exactly what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a great conversation.
It was.
I'm glad to hear it.
Anytime.
Thank
Appreciate
you, man.
buddy.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime. And I think you are on Manek, right? I think you are on Manek as well, where people can ask you questions, if I'm not mistaken.
I think we're going to set it up now.
Okay.
I'm not there yet, though.
Fantastic. All right. So, guys, we're going to put his contact information below to get a hold of him. Having said that, take care, everybody.
Wow, guys. I'm learning a lot about Nick Fuentes. I'm going to watch more clips, but I think I'm going to wait to watch them with you guys live. Learning a lot about this guy, and I like a couple of the points he made. And it's interesting because he does make you think and look at things in different ways. That's very interesting, guys. He mentioned how he mentioned how Israel's influence in different parts of our country has led to a massive increase in immigration to the United States, which in turn has made it easier for them, for people that are from Israel, but also making it to where we have more groups that are kind of coagulating and are more polarized and less likely to adjust to becoming American. I'm not anti-Israel. I'm not anything. I'm just thinking out loud. I'm trying to see where he's making me go, how he's making me think. I don't know what that coagulation and that kind of like polarizing thing of like, well, I'm going to come to America and I'm not gonna be American. I'm still gonna be like whatever other country I came from. I don't know what that feels like, because my parents, when they came here, they were in love with America, and my parents were one of they learn how to speak English like so fast, and my if you hear my parents talk, you don't even know they're from another country. I just grew up being proud to be American, loving the country, loving everything that America stands for. So I don't know what that coagulation feels like, although I've grown up out here in Southern California, grown up around a lot of people that were very slow to assimilate. So I do understand it. There's nothing wrong with immigration. Don't be anti-immigrant. I'm not anti-immigrant. My parents are immigrants. People have come to this country for blah, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we're not talking about immigration, just immigration. Again, I'm a product of immigration. We're talking about mass immigration at like very high levels. And even yes, I am bilingual. I was taught how to speak Farsi. الان میتونم باهات فارسی صحبت بکنم اصلا نمیفهمی چی میگم. You know what I mean? So like I can speak Farsi pretty well. And I actually learned how to read and write it from an ex-girlfriend that I had. But I understand immigration, and I love the fact that, you know, lots of immigrants have come. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah. There's a lot to learn about me. You guys are going to learn a lot about me. And can't wait to get more of you guys on and so we can dive in deeper and you guys can ask me even more questions. But I think it's the mass immigration. NC says Trump needs to put a pause on all immigration. A lot of people feel that way because of the number of people that we've let into the country in the last 4 years. And I understand that too. Do you know what he means? Do we know what who means? My parents immigrated from Iran, and they gave birth to me here in Southern California. And they were like one of the most proudest people they were like super proud to be American. They assimilated right away. And that's why I was saying, I understand it when some people don't assimilate and they want to like take forever before they learn how to speak our language and learn how to, you know, do all that kind of stuff and become American. I understand it, but I don't agree with it. And I also have a lot of videos. No, I'm not Muslim. I have lots of clips that are, I don't know if they're anti-Muslim, but they're not in favor of Islam. Yeah, I'm not Muslim, and I don't like what's going on with lots of parts of Europe, and I'm not afraid to give you guys my opinion. I'm not afraid to show you my Instagram. If you want to see it, this is it. Those are two that you can't change, nor will they. Yeah, those are two big ones. I would agree with that. Those are two big ones. I grew up with around a lot of Muslims. I grew up with around a lot of Christians, Catholic, and Protestant, and I mean, you name it. I grew up with. Do you go to the mosque? No, I have no reason to go to a mosque. Have I ever been? I've been there with an Arabic friend of mine. Once when I was a kid, he took, because I was spending the night at their house and they took me to a mosque, so I got to experience it. But I have no reason to go to a mosque. Keep the questions coming. I'm very open to giving my opinion, and I don't care if you like it or not. I'm glad. I actually enjoy talking about stuff. So in that live, he asked. In that live, he asked, who has a bigger influence in America? Were your parents Muslim? No. My parents are happy to be away from Muslim oppression in Iran. I'm not Muslim, and my parents are happy that they are not living under an Islamic regime in Iran. And that should tell you quite a bit. Keep the questions coming. Like I said, I don't mind giving my opinion. You guys want to see some things that I've posted? You're welcome to see them. Here's something I've posted. You want to see this? Here, let's see if the sound is up.
Muslims living with Sikhs. Problem. Muslims living with Hindus. Problem. Muslims living with Baha'is. Problem. Muslims living with Shintos. Problem. Muslims living with Buddhists. Problem. Muslims living with Christians. Problem. Muslims living with Muslims. Very big problem. So this led to, they're not happy in Gaza. They're not happy in Egypt. They're not happy in Libya. They're not happy in Iran. They're not happy in Iraq. They're not happy in Yemen. They're not happy in Pakistan. They're not happy in Syria. They're not happy in Lebanon. They're not happy in Nigeria. They're not happy in Kenya. They're not happy in Sudan. They're not happy in Morocco. And they're not happy in Afghanistan. So where are they happy? They're happy in Australia. They're happy in Belgium. They're happy in France. They're happy in Holland. They're happy in Italy. They're happy in Germany. They're happy in Spain. They're happy in Sweden. They're happy in Denmark. They're happy in the USA and Canada. They're happy in Norway and India. They're very happy in England. Loads of welfare benefits. They're happy in almost every country that is not Islamic. And who do they blame? Not Islam. Not their leadership. Not themselves. They blame the countries they are happy in. And they want to change the countries they're happy in to be like the countries they came from where they were not happy. Muslims living with Sikhs. Problem.
Yeah, so that's one of my reels that I posted. So it gives you an idea of my thoughts on Islam. I don't have, as I said, I've grew up with people that are Islamic. Just not happy about, definitely not happy about the oppression in Iran. And I'm not happy when they come somewhere else and try to change things to make it more like the countries they came from. If you like the country you came from more than you like our country, I mean, why are you even here? You know, that's a question that I always like to ask people. You know, why are you here, man? Like, if you want to change this to become more like the country that you came from, that you do not ever want to go back to, that's kind of weird to me. So again, guys, like I said, I'm happy to give my opinion. You guys are welcome to ask me questions. I don't mind it whatsoever. This is my own Instagram. And we just went through Nick Fuentes. Let's see here. I feel bad for Iran. They were on such a good path prior to the 79 revolution. State line. You know your history a little bit, bro. Appreciate that, man. Reza Pahlavi, welcome back. Welcome. Yeah, thanks for joining, guys. Islamic theocracy. Aren't you concerned about Christian nationalism being just like Islamic theocracy? No. No, because Islamic theocracy is very much aggressive, and they put the laws onto you, whereas with Christian nationalism, they're not putting laws on you like Islam does. So if you know of any country like Iran that's run by Islam, you don't have freedom. So that's a very big difference, guys. Very big difference. So we just went through some Nick Fuentes. Keep the questions coming. I don't mind, giving you guys more information about me. You guys are more than welcome to ask me any question you want. I'm not concerned, what you think about my opinions. And that's why I'm doing this. I love this. I actually have multiple businesses that make me money, that allow me to have more time to do what I enjoy doing, which is this. I actually don't get paid by this. I have not received a single dollar from social media. I do this because this is what I like doing, and I want to give you my opinion. And I kind of like Nick Fuentes, to be honest. He now runs his own show, and he doesn't have to answer to anybody, and I don't have to answer to anyone. And I like it like that. All right. So I'm trying to see what's going on live. Is this something that's live?
Work, which he called human trafficking. And this, what he did, is the very definition of terrorism, to collect a dirty paycheck. He wrote that he intended to...
Wow, we're getting some information. This is live, guys. I'm going to put this on and fix the sound really quick. Hang on one second. Let me fix the sound, guys. Let's go to here, here, here, and here, and we're going to fix the sound.
Media, so please, before you leave, add your information so that we have that. And
guys, here's information about the ICE situation.
Please remember to identify yourself and your media affiliation when you ask a question. And with that, I'll turn it over to Acting U.S. Attorney Nancy Larson.
Here we go.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here today. This is the third time in my short 4-month tenure as the acting United States Attorney for this district where we have suffered violent attacks and threats at ICE facilities. First, you'll recall July 4th, 2024, the violent attack on the Prairieland facility in Alvarado, Texas. The second occurred on August 25th, 2024, when Bratton Dean Wilkinson, who stands charged by federal complaint, pretended to have a bomb. He showed up at the ICE facility with a backpack and something that looked like a detonator on his wrist and threatened the facility. Third, of course, is yesterday's attack, September 24th, 2025, when the Dallas ICE facility was riddled with gunfire, costing the life of one detainee and injuring 2 other detainees critically. Initially, I want to commend the cooperation
this is new news.
of
Hold
the
on, let me back
Dallas
it up one second.
of one detainee and when the Dallas ICE facility was riddled with gunfire, costing the life of one detainee.
Okay, that's the news, guys. We thought 2 detainees lost their lives, and it turns out there's 1 detainee that lost his life.
And injuring 2 other detainees critically. Initially, I want to commend the cooperation of the Dallas Police Department, the Dallas County Sheriff's Office, the FBI, the ATF, ICE, and HSI for their swift and decisive response to this crime. Members of these agencies quickly secured the scene and the evidence and worked tirelessly to determine any continuing threat. Due to their efforts, it did not take long to ascertain the identity of the shooter, who was deceased by a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and that he very likely acted alone. His name is Joshua Yan, 29, of Fairview, Texas. Let me just review a very brief summary of the timeline of yesterday's attack. We believe at some point around 3 o'clock in the morning that the suspect was seen driving on footage with a large ladder on his car. And we believe that that is what he used to position himself on top of the building. The shooting itself started at approximately 6:30 a.m. After the shooting started, Dallas Police Department arrived en masse, secured the scene. Law enforcement officers found the sniper dead. They found bullets on the rooftop, one of which was labeled with the words anti-ICE. That morning, gunshots sprayed the length of the building, the windows, and law enforcement vans that were in the Sallyport area. Detainees were struck by these bullets. 1 was killed, 2 were wounded, and both of them are undergoing treatment. Shortly thereafter, the FBI began its meticulous work at the crime scene. At the same time, we obtained and executed multiple search warrants yesterday for devices and locations associated with the sniper. FBI agents executed a search warrant at the sniper's residence yesterday and there found a collection of notes. First, I want to point out that one of these notes or papers, the sniper explicitly states, yes, it was just me. That statement appears to be correct at this point in the investigation. Notably, these loose notes included a game plan of the attack and target areas at the facility. He called the ICE employees people showing up to collect a dirty paycheck. He wrote that he intended to maximize lethality against ICE personnel and to maximize property damage at the facility. He hoped to minimize any collateral damage or injury to the detainees and any other innocent people. It seems that he did not intend to kill the detainees or harm them. It's clear from these notes that he was targeting ICE agents and ICE personnel. The tragic irony for his evil plot here is that it was a detainee who was killed and 2 other detainees that were injured when he fired into the Sally Port. He also hoped his actions would give ICE agents real terror of being gunned down, and he did this to induce constant stress in their lives. He hoped his actions would terrorize ICE employees and interfere with their work, which he called human trafficking. And this, what he did, is the very definition of terrorism. Again, his notes reveal, yes, it was just me and my brain. And he said, good luck with the digital footprint. And of course, we take this to mean that he deleted evidence from his devices. His words were definitively anti-ICE. That said, we did not find evidence of membership in any specific group or entity, nor did he mention any specific government agency other than ICE. Among his papers, though, was a handwritten note in which, in crude words, he expressed his hatred for the federal government. Finally, I want to address the heroism of our federal agents yesterday. While under fire, ICE agents and ATF agents who were also present in the facility's Sallyport area worked together to remove detainees from the vans and get them to safety while the bullets were flying. These agents were heroic, clearly willing to lay down their lives to save the lives of the detainees in their custody. And that's an extremely important point to make at this point in time. I want to express my deepest appreciation for the bravery of these law enforcement officers yesterday and every single day that they go out there to keep us safe. I'll now turn it over to FBI Special Agent in charge of the Dallas Field Office, Joe Rothrock. Thank you.
Good afternoon. First, I'd like to start by thanking our acting United States Attorney, Nancy Larson, and her office for their support during this investigation. My name is Joe Rothrock, and I'm the Special Agent in charge of the FBI's Dallas Field Office. Yesterday morning, Joshua Yan carried out a targeted, ambush-style attack on law enforcement. Today, I will provide you with some updates of what we've learned through our investigation to date, to include Yan's own words in his handwritten notes. Yan specifically intended to kill ICE agents. He fired at transport vehicles carrying ICE personnel, federal agents, and detainees. He also fired multiple shots into the windows of the office building where numerous ICE employees do their jobs every day. We now know that Yan engaged in significant high degree of pre-attack planning. He searched for information about the office building and how to track ICE agents' locations. Yan also acknowledged the potential for other casualties. He knew with a high likelihood ICE detainees would be transported that morning in the exact location where he was facing from his perch on a nearby rooftop. Yan's attack did in fact result in the tragic death of one detainee and the injury to 2 other detainees. We have been able to confirm that Yan legally obtained an 8mm bolt-action rifle he used in the shooting in August of this year. Based on our investigation to date, we believe Yan acted alone, but I'll stress our investigation continues. This attack yet again underscores the dangers that law enforcement face daily. We continue to see an increased threats against law enforcement. This is the second attack in recent months on ICE facilities here in North Texas. I do want to take this opportunity to thank our law enforcement partners, some of whom are here with us today. When Yan began firing, agents from both ICE and the ATF put themselves in the line of fire to move individuals off the transportation vehicles in an attempt to protect and rescue those that were injured. I want to thank them for their bravery. The Dallas Police Department and the Dallas County Sheriff's Office also quickly responded to the scene without any hesitation and ran towards danger. Charles.
Good afternoon. My name is Marcos Charles. I am the ICE Executive Associate Director for Enforcement and Removal Operations. The attack on ICE's Dallas field office yesterday was tragic. The shooter used the ICE tracking apps. Anyone who creates or distributes these apps that is designed to spot, track, and locate ICE officers are well aware of the dangers that they are exposing to law enforcement. It's a casting call to invite bad actors to attack law enforcement officers. It's no different than giving a hitman the location of their intended target, and this is exactly what we saw happen in Dallas yesterday. The media has been amplifying these apps even as we warned them it would only lead to more attacks on law enforcement. We truly wish we didn't have to say, "I told you so," but here we are. ICE continues to prioritize the safety and security of our personnel, detained aliens, and facilities. We will do everything possible to increase security.
Remind you, this is an ongoing investigation. That is still an active crime scene. We still have personnel out there. As I mentioned earlier in my remarks, we brought in rehab because we are going to do a thorough and exhaustive investigation and make sure that we have a full accounting of all the evidence that's at that scene. Again, those efforts are ongoing at this time. I'm going to go here real quick. So you're referring to detainees that were not injured?
Correct.
Yeah.